This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson, alongside me, as always, is Rui Hachimura.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And today, we have a great show lined up for you. We're going to start off with the Denver Nuggets, currently neck and neck with the Warriors in the Western Conference. We'll talk about can they win the Western Conference, both in the playoffs and in the regular season. Can they take that throne away from the Warriors? Warriors currently in first place by a half a game. Then we'll move to NBA free agency, kind of. Colin McSherry on the draft mailbag wanted us to talk about the Clippers, so we will talk about the Clippers rebuild, how they should rebuild, and how free agency will affect that. Then we'll jump into our Wet Boys of the Week. There were a stupid amount of candidates, and we have huge news in the Fantasy League. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with a segment that I'm extremely excited about. We're going to end on a high note. We're going to talk about Sekou Doumbouya versus Rui Hachimura, how they both pan out as prospects, who will be the better pro, who's the better prospect, who should be ranked higher on big boards, et cetera, et cetera. Before we jump into all that, though, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. If you haven't already, that is a place where you can go and get extra rewards for being a fan. You can support us on that site. You could be on a podcast for $10. We had good old John Woodson on last week, about an hour segment talking about sleepers in the NBA draft.
It's a good time.
And next week, we have a huge episode coming out. We're not going to spoil anything for that, but a huge episode coming out next week for patrons and for non-patrons, but especially for patreon.com.
I had forgot what next week was already.
Dave was leaning over like,
we only spent 20 minutes.
Next week?
We spent 20 minutes talking about it before we started recording, and I've already forgotten.
It's going to be a huge day for most people, I guess.
Yeah.
But check that out. Go to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Also, real quick, if you are listening on iTunes, rate us 5 stars over there. It helps us grow. And it's super easy to do. Really takes like 2 seconds. But anyways, let's jump into the Nuggets talk. I just like to say when I'm right, and I will say I was on
when Sean was right.
I was on this Nugget train from the start of the season. I knew Jokic was going to be top 3 in MVPs, top 5 right now. But hey, I mean, being that close for Nikola Jokic, you guys thought I was crazy for that hot take.
We did.
I was for being this close.
I'm giving you all credit.
It's way closer than my hot take. Remember, the Lakers were going to be in the Western Conference Finals, guys.
Yikes!
Might not even make the playoffs.
Jake did have the hot take of LeBron wouldn't be a top 5 MVP finisher, and that looks pretty decent right now.
It does.
What was yours?
I don't remember.
Neither do I. But right now, Nuggets are 42-19. They have pretty much the best home record in the NBA. They're 27-5. You could also make the argument for the Milwaukee Bucks, who are 25-5. Raptors are 27-6. But they have the most wins and tied for the most amount of losses. So I think they have the better winning percentage compared to the Bucks. They sit at 42-19. Golden State Warriors sit at 43-19. So we're talking about, can the Nuggets win the Western Conference? Did it click in your head what your hot take was?
I think it was OKC is going to beat the Warriors.
I don't think that was it.
No. Was it the Memphis thing?
Doesn't ring a bell.
Oh,
was it Memphis
making the playoffs? And
was that the hot take? Or
and
was
then
that
I don't know. I feel like
that was it. And then he heel turned on it.
Yeah,
because you were all for
I might
Memphis,
have.
and then you did the classic WWE heel turn on Memphis.
I know I put him in the 8 seed.
We're breaking kayfabe here.
We'll have to revisit that podcast. But anyways, Warriors right now currently in first place in a half a game in front of the Denver Nuggets. Nuggets are 6-4 in the last 10. Warriors are 6-4 in the last 10. Both on losing streaks, but pretty much every top team in the Western Conference is. But let's talk about, can the Nuggets be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference? Like we already said, they have great home court advantage. They're pretty much 500 on the road. So looking at this, can they overcome the Warriors and become the number 1 seed in the Western Conference in the regular season? Then we'll talk about the postseason after that.
Yeah, I think they absolutely can. They've been holding steady. That absolutely great play as of late. I think the big thing is just you have so many tough games against your Western Conference opponents. They've got a short road trip where it's San Antonio, Lakers, Warriors, which don't take the Spurs lightly. I know they're falling out of the playoffs as we speak, but they're still a very good team. Obviously, the Lakers, you never know with LeBron and Warriors, so that's a tough stretch. And then thankfully they got the Eastern Conference trip of Boston, who's lost to literally everyone, the Wizards, the Knicks, and the Pacers, who Bojan hasn't been told that they're supposed to lose games yet. So they've got a couple of fun road trips coming up in the next 3 weeks. So I'm super excited, but I think they absolutely can. Their play is not, it's dependent on basically their outside shooting and Jokic ability to facilitate. And they've been doing excellent, and their guard play has been awesome as of late. Getting Isaiah Thomas, I know a lot of people are very like, does he deserve the minutes? Because he's trying to work his way off of that injury. But I absolutely think that by the end of the year, they have one of the best 3-guard setups in the league, and they absolutely have one of the best home court advantages. So going for that 1 seed, super important.
Yeah, the one thing that I will say for that next stretch of games, they do have 2 games against Golden State, which will be huge, but they are both on the road. They played earlier twice already, both in Denver. They won 198 and then got blown out the next game, 142-111. Both of those were in Denver. I will give Denver credit on that 142-111 game. They were without Gary Harris. They were without Jamal Murray. No, Murray was playing, but they were running out a lineup of Millsap, Torrey Craig, Jokic, Murray, and Beasley. So they didn't have a healthy Gary Harris, who's typically a guy who gets big minutes for them. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. But that's probably the biggest thing that jumps out at me that is a red flag, because if you're going to try to overcome the Warriors, you got to beat them. And you look at the home court, like you say, and the away splits, they're not that great away, so it's going to be tough to go into the Oracle and get that win. But Ricky, do you see a path for the Nuggets to get the number 1 seed in the Western Conference?
I see a path for them to maybe get the number 1 seed, and the only way they're going to get the 1 seed is if the regular season Warriors because with the same thing, it's the Warriors every year, where the regular season, it's like, you know what, we're going to coast through, we're going to be at the top. Oh, now it's time to click it on, and then they click it on. Like, the only road bump that we've seen in their dynasty was the Rockets series last year. Chris Paul goes down, they then go on and win that series. But I can't help but look at how everything lays out right now and think the 1 seed, it's nice to have home court advantage. I know Dave, before the podcast, was throwing my way, you look at the numbers, and overall, the team that has home court advantage should win the series. But the thing that I look at is how the teams seed out right now, and to me, the most important thing is going to be where the Blazers end up in this. Because you think about it right now, if you are the 2 seed, and if I look over at how the seeding goes off, if you're the 2 seed, that means you're going up in the second round either against the 3 or the 6. Well, that 3 seed right now is Oklahoma City, and they have been a really good team. They're a team that many people are saying could be I'm going to say, sleeper in the playoff, like that non-top 2 team that, hey, they could make a run to the Western Conference Finals. Right. But then if you get the 1 seed, there's a possibility you can play the Rockets, where I wouldn't want to see either of those teams. If both of those end in the 3-4 range, you're going to be in a better situation than you would be with 2. So
but
to me, I don't think
the regular season.
I don't think it matters, because the regular season, eventually the Warriors are going to get it going. They're going to snap into playoff mode, and the Warriors will be the number 1 seed.
I disagree that it doesn't matter, because it does matter. Yes, obviously it matters for playoff seeding, but also to say that you were the Western Conference champions does matter to Denver. I mean, Denver is a team that's still rebuilding. They weren't in the playoffs last year. To go from outside of the playoffs to go to the number 1 seed, that's absolutely huge. And not only is that huge just for the team, it's also huge for Nikola Jokic's MVP case if they are able to, in the best conference, to come out over the Warriors, over the Thunder, over the Blazers, Rockets, et cetera, and win that conference. It's just huge for your team, it's huge for your history, and it's huge just to hang that up in the rafters. So I disagree that it's not important in the grand scheme of things, because obviously you're going to be worrying about playoff difficulties, but in the playoffs, it doesn't matter about your regular season record. It matters who shows up. So all you have to do is show up. It doesn't matter about the seed. Golden State showed that in 2007 when they went up against the number 1 seeded Dallas Mavericks and beat them. I mean, it doesn't matter what seed you are. It's always going to be difficult. You need to handle your task. So I think it's just important for the regular season that if they do win it, you can say, hey, we hung one over the Warriors. We got that. And even if we didn't win the NBA title, we still had a great, phenomenal season. And we could take that momentum into next season and build something great off of this.
I will agree to disagree. I will agree that, yes, if we're talking about a confidence boost for next year, coming into next year, yes, we can do it, then yeah, it's important. But wins and losses,
that when you beat LeBron and you were the number 1 seed and Derrick Rose was the MVP, that didn't mean shit to the Chicago Bulls?
Look at what happened in the playoffs. Look at what and that's another
But you
argument
don't
of
remember
the regular season does not matter. I remember it fondly.
I mean,
but
we have Chicago Bulls
but
fans,
I also
trying to build
do
that team
remember
with Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose already.
We came in and it was that same season of hey, you know what? We're gonna come in Eastern Conference Finals. The Bulls, we beat LeBron in the Heat 3 out of 4 times, and what happened in the playoffs? The Heat beat us. So for me, I feel like the best teams show up when the lights are the brightest.
Yes.
And with me, Warriors are my favorite. Thunder and Rockets will be tied for 2. Nuggets would be right after them.
But the point is that the Nuggets stand the best chance of winning if they have that home court throughout.
Mm-hmm. Well,
right?
that's
invisible.
mathematically with the
They have one of the best home court records in the NBA, correct?
Yeah, 27-5.
27-5. That's insane. So giving them the best chance to win in the playoffs would be they need to have the number 1 seed in the playoffs for the Western Conference.
If they do get
there's no argument.
No,
to that.
if they do get the number 1 seed and everything else stays the same, they just flip with the Warriors and they play the Spurs, literally home court advantage will mean so much because they'll be going up against the Spurs. Spurs are 23-7 at home and 11-22 away.
Yeah.
So pretty much those 4 games at home, if you are going just by record, the 27-5 home Nuggets in 4 games against the Spurs, who are 11-22 on the road, should win all 4 of those games.
And that doesn't even hit the matchups. I mean, you're just going from a pure overview.
What do you mean?
You're not even hitting the matchups
statistically, how bad the Spurs are away and how good the Nuggets are at home.
Yep.
Those 4 games matter so much because if you do what you should do and take care of home court, you already are going on to the second round.
But I mean, even and here's another reason to put in my case why it really won't matter in the end of things is being the 2 seed, you'd still have home court advantage over the Thunder or the Rockets. And the Thunder and the Rockets, their road win-loss isn't that impressive. The only one that has an impressive win-loss is obviously the Warriors. And I know that, yes, getting that home field gives you all right, mathematically, home court, mathematically, we have the best chance. But the thing, and this is how home court works, obviously, Warriors win one of those first 2 games. All right, home court now flips over to the Warriors where it is going to be near impossible in my mind for the Nuggets to beat the Warriors in the playoffs, which would probably be Western Conference Finals, if they don't win those first 2 games. And they'd probably have to win those first 2 games and maybe a game in Golden State in order, in my mind, to beat the Warriors in the conference finals. That's why I would say it doesn't really matter in my mind whether they're 1 or 2.
But you're talking about conference finals Nuggets, which in itself is a hell of an achievement for a team that wasn't in the playoffs last year, that has an average age of they're super young. Their pick from last year hasn't even played yet in the NBA. I mean, we're talking about one of the most loaded young teams in the NBA, and we're talking about Western Conference Finals matchup. That's where you're at. You need to realize that that's an amazing win for them already. They're not trying to be the Clippers. They're not trying to get in the playoffs and get knocked out again. That ain't their game. They're not doing the Chris Paul shit. They're going in and they've got a chance to be a dynasty in the West because of the age, the way contracts line up. This is a team where this one playoff run,
and I do agree with you. Dynasty in the
them.
West, they're at the beginning of it. They're at the beginning of this dynasty.
You look, and we're talking last week. I mean, if Kevin Durant leaves, that makes the Warriors intrinsically worse. If he leaves, if Klay Thompson leaves, that makes them intrinsically worse. It's going to be easier next year for the Nuggets to win in the playoffs because then you have that playoff experience as well. I think the only player on their roster, I could be wrong. I think there's 2. And if I'm wrong, definitely correct me. Isaiah Thomas, who's not that big of a player in the scheme of their rotation.
Yeah, he's
not
still quite found his groove yet.
Yeah, he's still coming back off that injury. He's still going to take time, and even when he does, Monte Morris has been playing phenomenally. Jamal Murray's a great starter for them. I'll also give a shout out to Malik Beasley as well. I know he's more of a 2 guard. But Isaiah Thomas, who's not that huge of a rotation player, and Paul Millsap, who's a starter for them. But those are the only 2 players on their roster with playoff experience. I mean, there's no expectations for them to go in to win the NBA Finals. If you have the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, you beat the Warriors, that is such a huge mark for the Denver Nuggets to hit.
Well, and
I don't think it's going to be a failure of a season or anything like that if they lose in the playoffs.
Exactly.
It's just a young team that last year showed their youth, weren't able to get to the playoffs, but obviously showed their young talent and potential, and now we're finally taking that potential and doing something with it. It's just more about gaining experience, and doing that and making it into the playoffs and having home court advantage is absolutely huge. And if you go to the Western Conference Finals and you lose to the Warriors, that's nothing. It's not like
you
a
lost
failure.
To the best team in basketball. So you're the second best team in basketball.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I mean,
look at the Rockets last year. That's exactly what we're saying.
And no one's saying like that this season is a failure, but I
feel like
think
that's kind of the tone you're giving off.
No, I look
like
at
it's all
it
about
where
the playoffs or nothing.
No, it will. A, yes, it is, but B, it's your argument is coming more from a next year, which even if they're the 2 seed, I think this team comes into next year with not a chip on their shoulder, but a little bit of a confidence boost. Like, hey, you know what? We did already as the 2 seed last year exceed expectations. Like Sean was saying, like Jokic in top 3, and this team, I believe you said, like, oh, they'll finish top 3 in the West. And even at that, we were like, whoa, Sean, kind of pump your brakes a little bit. So, like, they've already exceeded expectations where at this point, they're playing with house money. Where it's like they could, with me, the only thing that could be a huge negative on this team is if they go in to either a series against the Clippers or the Spurs and lose that series, which I don't see happening. I see them at the very least winning the first round, either as the 1 or the 2, and then at the very least getting bounced out in the second round, only because they're going to be playing a Thunder team where Paul George has been insane this year, and you got 2 guys in him and Russ who have playoff experience, plus that team has more playoff experience. Yeah. Then you have the Rockets, who look at all the playoff experience they have, and they were literally the number 2 team in the West last year, would have been the number 1 if Chris Paul didn't get hurt. And then you're probably going to go on and play the Warriors, who's the best team in basketball.
Wait,
so
what did you say about the Rockets?
If they have playoff experience, they would have been
they
the
were the number 1 seed last year.
No, they would have been they weren't the number 1 because they lost to the Warriors.
Like
so
in
the Warriors
they were
were
the number 2 team.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they would have been the number 1
seed in the West.
Yeah, but they would have finished number 1 and beat the Warriors if Chris Paul didn't get hurt. I see them losing to one of those 2 teams in the second round.
It wasn't also that. It was the fact that they couldn't hit a shot in Game 7.
Well, yeah,
I mean, they only lost that game by 9, and they missed 27 straight 3-pointers.
It was the unluckiest team in NBA history.
Take a step in and then shoot.
Literally, I mean, like this was a team that had home court advantage, and it really didn't matter that much. Game 1 at home, they lost 119-106. Then they won 127-105. Then Golden State took the first game in Golden State 126-85. Then Houston tied it up in Game 4, 95-92. Then Houston took the next game at home, 98-94. Then Golden State tied it to 3-3 at 115-186. And then Golden State obviously won Game 7. So it was pretty much Rockets. They went 2-2 on on home court in that series.
They should have.
It wasn't that important for them to have home court.
Like they should have won that series, but that's not the point. Like for me, getting back to the Nuggets, I think the big thing of it is going to be when they get to that second round.
Yeah, how
are you going to do either against the Rockets or the Thunder, depending on how things play out? But right now, 1 or 2, you're playing one of those 2 teams in the next round.
Well, right now, of course, because obviously,
right
the
now
Jazz
is what we can look at.
The Jazz are on a 3-game win streak. Rockets are on a 3-game win streak. I don't think any of us thought Portland was going to be this good. So they could always take a dip. But none of us had them in the playoffs. Yeah, no, 100%. So obviously things can shake out completely differently.
Absolutely.
Clippers and Spurs might not even be in the playoffs when we talk about this next, but they do have a nice 2.5 game cushion, at least for the Spurs over the Kings. Yep. So I think definitely playoff experience is going to play into factor. Clearly their worst matchup is Golden State, but if they do stay at 1 or 2 and the Warriors are just the next team or the team in front of them, they want to see them into the Western Conference Finals. So which team should they want to avoid at all costs then? Whether they're the number 1 or number 2, what's their like route to winning the Western Conference in the playoffs?
I mean, right now, I sort of agree with. I don't want to do it. I think the Blazers are an underrated team when it comes to playoff matchups, just because they play so damn big down low, and Nurkic is a monster. Now they added Kanter, so they've got someone who's extremely offensively gifted in Kanter who can come off the bench, give them instant points. And Nurkic is just so damn tough down in that low post.
And Nurkic will play with an edge, too, since they traded him.
Yeah, he definitely does. And I think the guard matchup is really intriguing there. You got Dame and CJ. We'll see what happens. Is this going to be a redemption year for them after their disappointing loss last year in the playoffs, getting swept out by the Pelicans? So I think they're a team that I would be afraid of going into the playoffs.
Well, but they won't be playing them for the first round.
Right.
So
I was just saying,
is their best route getting the number 1 seed?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so then who should they be looking for in that first round matchup?
I mean, if it ends up being, are we just saying basically between Clippers, Spurs, and Kings?
Whoever could be the 8th seed. If you're saying they should be getting, they should, and they need to get the number 1 seed.
Like, what is their best opponent to make the finals, basically?
Well, no,
right?
yeah, pretty much. But first round, we'll start there.
Yeah, I would say give me the early going. Give me the. I don't want. Give me the Clippers. Give me the Clippers because they're a team where they're getting the best player out of their bench players. I know it's strategic, but out of Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell, and I think that those two guys, yes, they've cut their teeth. They're in the league for a bit. Obviously, Lou Will more than Montrezl, but it comes down to the fact that the pace and the matchups for the Nuggets, I think they absolutely would be able to run roughshod on them with their 3-point shooting. They don't have enough defenders. Like Pat Beverly can't be everywhere at once. So give me that matchup, and then I think honestly, it's gonna be dirty. What not Plumlee, because I love Plumlee. What Millsap's gonna be able to do with Danilo out there? Like I think that's a matchup that's gonna get absolutely abused. So I think that give me the Clippers. They're a deep team, yes, but the Nuggets have so much more talent, and the outside shooting is a massive difference maker. The spacing they are able to run with.
So then, let's say the 4-5 pans out. They play, the 4 or the 5 seed. Who should they be looking for there? Like, should a team be falling down there? A team be moving up? Which team is the best matchup in that range?
If I would be them, I would root for the Rockets to win, 100%.
You think that's going to give them the best matchup?
I do. I think James Harden is going to be either dying at that point because he's just played every minute of every possible game and putting up 50 a night, which is ridiculous. But can that keep going? And every single year in the playoffs, we watch it sort of putter out right at the end. So that's the team I would take in the second round because Chris Paul might not be healthy. Clint Capella might not be healthy. So now I'm looking at Austin Rivers and Nene getting minutes in the playoffs at a serious level. Kenneth Faried, he's been awesome, but still, it's just like it's not the same. So give me the team that's got an injury history, that is just known to run just a little bit short in the playoffs.
I weirdly think the Thunder might be the best matchup. I think from that, just because I know that Russ is extremely talented. Paul George has been on a next level for him. But you look at Portland and you look at Houston. Let's say they all are healthy.
Yeah.
Houston gives you the matchup of Harden, which obviously can sputter out, but
he also has the highest top end of anybody outside of
and
Golden
we're talking
State.
About Portland having the dangerous guard matchup.
Yeah.
Obviously, Houston has the better guards. And I think Clint Capella going up against Jokic, at least defensively for Jokic, is something that they can abuse. And we see how efficient Harden and Paul can be on the pick and roll using Capella. And I think Jokic defensively, although he's fantastic at reading passes, jumping lanes, anticipating, he is not a rim protector yet.
Yeah.
And Capella's so strong,
and that
driving and attacking. Too. I think that would be a very difficult matchup. Same reasons for why Nurkic gives that to them as well.
That's fair.
And also, just we're talking about pace and keeping it up. That can change for the Rockets, especially for them being experienced. They're extremely experienced. They've been here before, and with their ability to keep up the pace and them shooting, they can keep up with a tough altitude. But also, the altitude might hurt James Harden. And then obviously, they're going to face Golden State. You think no matter what in the Western Conference Finals? Right?
I don't see any way Golden State doesn't make it to the finals. It's just they're so damn good. 5 All-Stars, man. It's not fair.
Ricky, give me your ideal for the Nuggets run.
With me, it's going to sound crazy, but stick with me. Staying at the 2 seed will probably be better for the Nuggets moving forward, and this is why I say, number 1, give me the Spurs round 1. They're a team that even at now the Spurs would have to move up to 7. But give me that 7-2 with the Spurs because the Spurs are terrible on the road. I'd have home court advantage. I'm the best home court team right now in the West. I should be able to win that series. Then in number 2, another one that another team would have to do something. I say give me Portland in the second round because the Portland Trailblazers, Dave, they do this in the playoffs. They choke. They choke in the playoffs. And this is a team where if the Trailblazers, who are only a half game behind the Thunder, can move to that 3, give me that 2-3. I will take my chances with Portland. I'll let the Thunder and the Rockets beat each other up and then have to go through Golden State before then I possibly will most likely have to play the Warriors in the finals.
If we're talking about the Thunder, the reason why I think they are a good matchup for Denver is because if we're talking about choking, I mean, Russ last year was bad in the playoffs. Paul George was not great in the playoffs. They lost to the Jazz. And I know they had their games, they had their moments in the playoffs, but ultimately you lost to Donovan Mitchell, a rookie-led team. So, I mean, you look back at last year, what have you done for me lately in the playoffs? Russ and Paul George have not been great. They got bounced in the first round. And if we're talking about bigs matchup, Steven Adams is not a good offensive big. So that's one place right there automatically where I think that the Nuggets can win. He's a great defender, for sure, and they have great defending bigs. Him and Nerlens.
Nerlens has been amazing.
Yeah, are something that I think can give them problems. But also Jokic, I think, exceeds that defensive ability. He's a guy that's going to get his numbers no matter what, and he's going to be a guy who can do everything for you. He can rebound, obviously put up points. He can put up near 35 points a game, and then have a game where he's just like 4 points and then like 15 assists. So like he's a guy that can find a way to win, and I think that that's going to be something that I really like that Thunder matchup for them. They weren't able to win Utah last year enough to actually flip that series. The Thunder were, and I think that going into Denver will be even much harder for them. So I think the Thunder are a great matchup for them.
See, I'm on just the other side of I think that this year Paul George is playing a different level of basketball. Russ is kind of figuring out a different role, let's say, than he had last year. Kind of like taking, and it's weird to say this for us, a step back to Paul George and kind of saying like, hey, we're going to do whatever we want to win. Plus, I mean, if we're going to talk about playoff experiences last year, I don't think anything beats the Trailblazers where you came in with home court advantage and then got swept by the Pelicans. Like, that series was so bad. That's all Dave could talk about after it happened.
And it's something,
how
too,
bad it was.
That Portland has not gone as far as the Western Conference in years, I think.
The semifinals is as far as
but they've been a
made.
consistent playoff contender every year.
6 straight years for the playoffs.
And that's why
they've been Clipper-esque in their
if I'm the Nuggets,
success.
give me that in the second round over the Thunders and Rockets. And
but
then
they're a different team this year. Like, that's the thing.
I still think that if you're holding
last
the
year
Nuggets
against people and you want to say you want to attack Paul George and Russell Westbrook and say they underperformed last year.
Paul George throughout his career has been near great in the playoffs. Past 3 years,
can't take a last shot.
26.5 points per game,
but
7 boards, 4 assists, 1.7 steals, 42% from the field, 40% from three. Yeah. It's just clearly he has not done enough because the past 3 years that he has played great, he's been bounced in the first round.
But even look at the road splits where it's like out of the 3, the Rockets are 15 and 16, which isn't that far off from where Portland is, but they have the James Harden card. And the Thunder right now, out of the teams besides maybe the Clippers and the Warriors, have one of the better road records. So give me the team with the worst road record, who I'd have more confidence in because they don't have Paul George, they don't have Russ, they don't have James Harden. Give me that before I have to play the Warriors in the Western Conference.
They still have Dame, they have CJ, and there might be
playing amazingly.
And there might be an idea of, again, we haven't made it, and there might be that extra edge of, hey, let's not do what happened last year. I mean, like, maybe they don't have that talent to flip it.
They've played each other so far this year. The first one was decided by 1 point, and the second one by 3 points. Obviously, with the Nuggets winning both, but still.
I'll ask you this: then. If we had a series right now, Nuggets and Blazers, who would you take?
Nuggets.
Yeah, exactly.
I would too. If you guys said the same thing for the Thunder, I'd take the Nuggets too.
But like that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, the Blazers might be able to make it a 6-game series. They're still going to lose to the Nuggets. That's the best road. Give me the Spurs, give me the Blazers. Before I'll probably have to play the Warriors, but the best road would probably be playing the Thunder or the Rockets. But really, that's the only one where it's like, yeah, your best road is not playing the Warriors, but you're probably going to have to play the Warriors.
The Spurs are split with them right now. They got 2 more games coming up, one on Monday and one on April 3rd to wrap up the season, but they're split. So
also, so far, Denver's 3-0 against Oklahoma City.
But yet again, like I said with the whole Bulls thing, in the playoffs, I don't come into where, we beat them 3-4. That was the regular season. It's a new season now.
Yeah, but then also, let's look at the postseason for Paul George last year. The last game, he put up 5 points in 45 minutes. Let's look at Russell Westbrook. He lost that series for the Oklahoma City Thunder last year.
Could happen.
That's why I'm not afraid of them. Yes, Paul George is a different player this year so far, but it's also the regular season. So if you're going to do that for the Bulls and 8 years ago, we can do that for Paul George last year. final thoughts on the Nuggets. Can they win the Western Conference either in the regular season or postseason? Give me both answers.
I think regular season, yes, they absolutely can. The rest of their schedule, they've got a couple rough matchups with some back-to-back, but I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to lock it in. With the Warriors, there's just too many games where they don't turn it on. They literally got swept out of the state of Florida, losing to Orlando and the freaking Heat with a Dwayne Wade amazing three-point game winner. So give me the Nuggets in the regular season, but they will not make it through the Western Conference Finals.
Same thing. They have a chance to get the 1 seed. I don't think they will. They'll be the 2 seed.
So not quite the same
They
thing.
also have a chance to play in the Western Conference Finals, but Nuggets fans, don't hate me. They'll probably lose to the Thunder in the second round and then hope to rebound next year.
I believe counting this, Denver has 9 more home games and 11 more road games. Golden State has 10 and 10. That does worry me, especially looking at who they are playing on the road: San Antonio, Los Angeles, Golden State, Boston, Indiana, Golden State twice actually, Oklahoma, Houston, Portland, and Utah. It's going to be a tough stretch for Denver. However, I do also see the possibility of them going 9-0 at home at the rest of the season, playing New Orleans, Minnesota, Dallas, Indiana, Detroit, Washington, San Antonio, and Portland and Minnesota. I definitely see that as a possibility. So it's really going to come down to those 2 games against Golden State. Both are going to be primetime. Friday, March 8th, that's going to be at Golden State, 9:30 on ESPN, and Tuesday, April 2nd at Golden State, 9:30 on TNT. Both primetime games. It's going to be huge for Denver to win those games. If they win those games, they will be the number 1 seed. If they lose one of them, they will not. I think that's going to be pretty much what it comes down to. You need to at least win one of them to put yourself in contention. If you lose both, you get swept. You're not going to get the number 1 seed. So I will say it's close. I will lean towards no for Denver winning the regular season number 1 seed. But I do see them possibly winning the Western Conference. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to beat Golden State in the Western Conference Finals. But I do think that their hardest matchup, when this team is firing on all cylinders, I said this during our playoff predictions, was the Lakers, just because they didn't have a player, the Nuggets, who can turn it on to that next level like a LeBron James, but LeBron James hasn't been able to turn it on that level this whole season. So I think the playoff experience of a LeBron James would have been something that we wouldn't have been able to deal with. But outside of Golden State, I don't think any team has a player like that to turn it on. And the other thing with Golden State is they looked vulnerable last year with the Houston Rockets in Game 7, but also this is a team that has not been extremely healthy. So if Steph Curry is injured throughout any of those 7 games and they're able to take advantage of that, that will be absolutely huge. So I will not write off the fact that they can win in the regular season, and I also will not write off the fact of them winning it in the postseason. But if I had to say, gun to my head, I'll say no to both, unfortunately, although I am the I guess, resident.
You're the Nuggets fan.
Closet fan. But let us know what you think down in the comments below. Can the Nuggets win the Western Conference either in the regular season or postseason? I think they can, but will they? Probably not. But let us know down in the comments below. But before we move into the next segment, don't forget, again, to check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/MostOutPodcast. I've been having some conversations with y'all on Twitter, so don't forget to drop over, hit us with a follow, and talk to us. We love talking to you guys. I have nothing to do with most of my days. So love talking NBA with you guys, so definitely slide into our DMs. We appreciate the conversation that you guys always bring. But let's jump into the Los Angeles Clippers. I want to give a shout out to Colin McSherry, who said, hey, talk about the Clippers. We also have one about talk about the Hornets, so we'll bring that up in future days. But we've been wanting to talk about the Clippers because of the possibility of AD wanting to go there, because of Kawhi possibly being linked there, and also with their rebuild. They traded away Boban Marjanovic. They traded away Tobias Harris.
Bobby and Toby.
Yeah, Bobby and Toby. They traded away those two. Arguably their best player in Tobias Harris. People were like, oh, now it's time for a tank. Now it's time for a rebuild. And they're still in the playoffs at 7th. So right now it's really, is it a rebuild? How is the rebuild going? And what should be the next steps for this rebuild? Before we get into that question, though, I do want to throw out, I think this is going to be a extremely tough year for Coach of the Year, because you look out in the East, you have good old Coach Bud for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Absolutely.
You have Nick Nurse, who deserves credit. You have Mike Malone of the Denver Nuggets, especially if they win the number 1 seed. Michael Malone of the Denver Nuggets, especially if they win the number 1 seed. You got to look at Dave Yeager of the Sacramento Kings for what he's done, and Doc Rivers, because Doc Rivers is winning. He's in the playoffs with pretty much no star on that team at all.
Couldn't you put Steve Clifford in the conversation too?
I mean,
It's the Magic.
it's the Magic, but also it's not like
They're in the playoffs.
If they were like,
Well, right
I
now
think,
they're a half
I think
game out
Kenny,
as we're
I think
recording.
Kenny Atkinson deserves more credit for the Nets than Steve Clifford does with the Magic. Is that fair?
They've got the Nets have an all-star.
Yes. So did the Magic.
Yeah.
Nikola Vucevic,
But like it's Vucevic.
but he's still an all-star.
Yeah.
So
I'll go evensies.
what would you say? Like, who's the front runner in your mind for Coach of the Year?
Well,
because I think
it's
Doc Rivers.
Bud.
It's easy for me. A team that should have been tanking is now winning games. Jim Boylan, Coach of the Year. Right?
Oh God.
Right? That's
Give
an
me an
obvious.
actual
That's an
answer.
obvious joke. I would give it to Bud. Like with the East, where it is, it's either you give it to Budenholzer for what he's done with the Bucks, or you give it to Michael Malone. You know what? I'm gonna change my answer. I'll give it to Michael Malone for what he's done with the Nuggets because they were not a playoff team. They were on the verge of a
were
win
close.
and you're in,
That was
and
actually
they
great.
lost,
Yeah.
and now they're the second seed. Fucking, I'm gonna give it to Malone.
Right.
But
I think
Bud, I know this isn't the
know.
segment, but it's
I
just
know.
like he literally took a team last year that was good but had so many problems to now being the best team in
One
the
of the
East.
best defensive metrics teams, I believe.
But also,
too.
then if Dave Yeager gets them to the playoffs, I think the Kings, who went from garbage town
bigger
to the
flip.
playoffs, is
Just saying the playoffs is a difference than like what Bud means to that team in Milwaukee is night and day to what Jason Kidd did to them.
let us know what you think down in the comments below.
Yeah.
Who's the
Another
front runner?
comment, another day.
Give us a power ranking, top 5 power ranking
Yeah.
for Coach of the Year. But anyways, let's jump into the Clippers. Right now they sit at 35-29, 9 games back of the Golden State Warriors, 3 games ahead of the Sacramento Kings, who are in 9th place, half a game in front of the Spurs for the 8th seed. They are 17-12 at home, 18-17 away. They are on a 1-game win streak and 6-4 in their last 10. So let's start off with the Clippers right now. Do you think that they were rebuilding with that Tobias Harris move? What was the idea behind that Toby move, and has it panned out for what their goal was when they traded away Tobias Harris?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Ricky, go first.
Well, the thing that I think about is the reason why they made that deal was because, in my mind, it was like, okay, we are moving on into the future. We are moving on into free agents. If we keep Toby around, we then have to keep the question of, do we give him a deal or not? Do we re-sign him? Do we just let him walk? They traded him. They tried to get something for him rather than just letting him walk at the end. I think the second part of your question, the will it pay off? We're not going to get that answer until after free agency, until we see what big fish, if any, will the Clippers be able to land.
I mean, I think they so far are happy with the trade. They got Landry Shamet, who is low-key just an absolute stud from the outside. Incredible shooter. His time under J.J. Redick, like totally Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like,
Who they
it's
have
just-
locked down on a rookie deal until, what,
course.
2022?
he's a rookie.
Yeah.
He's a rook. But I don't think we're going to find out for a while either because they got 2 first-round picks out of this. Obviously, the protected one from the Sixers. Cool, 2020. That's cool. But the 2021 Heat pick where that one's got the intrigue, that one's unprotected, and who knows what the Heat will be doing in 2021. So I think that not only contractually are they in great shape, but also from a future like prospect potential, like they just have wealth.
Well, what do you think it should be their plan? Because Ricky obviously brought up free agency. You brought up their wealth in youth. Obviously, they have a great, just kind of, young core. They drafted Jerome Robinson, who hasn't been that great this year.
But you got Shea?
He still was top 15. But I was going to bring up the guys. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who's been really great for them, taken 11th. Last year in the draft. They have Ivica Zubac, who they got from the Lakers, and they have Landry Shamet. So, I mean, those 3 are extremely young. Those guys have all promise. I don't know which ones will be stars, but they all seem like they can be, good rotation pieces to starters at their top end. Also, I don't think I'm missing anybody, but those are pretty much the big 4. You might want to throw them out because Dave loves him, but he hasn't been great. But
who? Sorry?
Thornwell.
Oh,
Thaddeus.
he's meh.
And then obviously they have the
Dave's like, he's no longer in the Gamecocks making a historic run.
And then obviously they have the future wealth as well. So do you think they're going to go towards a youth movement, or do you think it's going to be an attack in free agency and then use that wealth of picks and that youth to then bring in stars through trades?
I've got a plan, and Dave, I'm going to throw this towards you. You tell
throw your
me
plan. Yeah.
what this plan is. Number 1, you got to get Kawhi Leonard.
I'll go Jerry West mode on this.
Well, because here's what you got. You've got 2. You're plan this offseason, dual max. You've opened it up for the dual max. potentially you can get a third max type player. I'll get to that in a little bit. Number one target is getting Kawhi Leonard to the Clippers. You need to do that in my mind. Number two, you could go a few different directions. You can either target like a Kyrie or a Kemba, try to get a point guard on that max deal. But like you said, they got Shea, they have Landry Shamet. They don't have to go point guard. So they could go maybe like, oh, do we want to try to bring Clay away from the Warriors? Do we want to go after a Jimmy Butler, depending how he's feeling after what happens with the 76ers in the playoffs? That second tier is whatever you feel. Because of what they have, wouldn't be mad if they went after like a Jimmy Butler, got like maybe Kawhi and Jimmy to come in, but I wouldn't be mad if it's like Kawhi and Kemba or Kawhi and Kyrie, even with the point guards that they have, because like we've said, they are young. The third option, which brings in those picks, instead of using them, how about taking Danilo, who is up after next year, and a Lou Will, who, yes, he's been good for this team, but the guy we're getting would be better for us, could go after an Anthony Davis with those picks, and could virtually bring in Kawhi, a second max of the point guard, shooting guard, whichever you want, and an Anthony Davis to this team.
For a top 5 player, you are going to trade Lou Williams and Danilo Gallinari.
And a boatload of picks.
I don't see that working because I don't think 4 picks is going to do it. I think you need to give them somebody young. And
I don't know.
So here
you could throw in
let's throw out the picks they have. They don't have their pick right now in 2019. It's right now going to the Celtics. Celtics via the Grizzlies. They have, I think, 3 second-round picks. They have 2 first-round picks in 2020. They have 76ers pick. It may or may not transfer. It's top 14 protected. It should transfer. And then they have their own pick in 2020. And then they have the unprotected Heat in 2021. And they have their own in 2021. And then they have their next picks until 2026 after that. So they have 4 first rounders in 2020 and 2021. Yeah. I don't think all 4 of those first are going to get Anthony Davis.
But let's say
really, because the deal that we heard for Anthony Davis is now a lie. So I'm interested to know what the true value is.
I'm going to be interested in true value, but also if the Lakers were giving up Lonzo
Ball, that was the point. It came out that
when did it come out as a lie? Who reported
Jackie
that?
Mack and God, what's his name? I don't remember.
I didn't
the other
see
guy's
that
name.
from Woj or anybody.
Yeah, they're talking about how it's very likely that it was pushed out publicly by the Pelicans, and that wasn't actually the offer that was on the table. Yes, the Lakers had made offers, but it wasn't that offer.
What was
it did
the
not
offer,
include. They weren't being specific. They just said it didn't include all 4.
So I got it for you. Yeah. So on the jump, Jackie Mack said, "My sources have told me in the last 48 hours that what we heard the Lakers offered may not be true. So I think there's some questions now about how much did they offer. Really, did they even get a chance to offer anything?" Is what Jackie Mack said on the jump yesterday.
So
that was nothing. So it might not be true. That's it.
It's Jackie Mack. When she has a source, I trust her. She's been in the business for like 40 years.
But also, then we now have the idea that the Celtics are going to get into this Anthony Davis thing, right? And the idea is that they're going to give up Tatum, right?
Potentially.
So if they give up Tatum, that's going to beat 4 first-round picks in my mind, because Jason Tatum is better. It's like pretty much what the whole Bears and Raiders thing is. You can have first-round pick, or you can have Khalil Mack.
And here's the thing,
and with that first-round pick, you can just take a guy like Khalil Mack. Like,
if Kyrie is
that's already there.
If Kyrie is leaving, will the Celtics want to offer up JT? Like, that's a big question. And also, with what I said, let's say you're then targeting a Kyrie or a Kemba in free agency, like that's your plan. Why not throw either a Shamet or a Shea into that AD trade if your plan is to get a point guard? Like, yes, if you whiff on one of those 2 point guards, that looks bad. But if your plan is to bring in Kawhi and a point guard and then get AD, that could work.
I'm saying if you needed to add a young player.
Yeah.
So if you're
what if I add in like Shea?
No, I'm saying if you're adding in Shea in 4 first, that makes it extremely interesting. But if you're giving me Danilo Gallinari and Lou Williams, then no. But it's a lot because it's Anthony Davis.
It's still a lot to give up for somebody who hasn't been able to do anything on their own.
Well, I feel like
but the idea is
talented,
you're going to pair him with another star.
But he's never been good enough to carry a team into the playoffs and do anything.
That's not true. They went to the second round last year.
Yeah, but guess how they got to the second round? Rondo and Drew Holiday.
Anthony Davis was a goddamn stud.
Nico
in that series.
Mirotic. Like
Do you want me to read off? You want me to read off Anthony Davis' stat line?
I'm just
Anthony
saying,
Davis is a monster.
LeBron James is
in
a
that
man
series.
who can get a team to the playoffs with no talent around him.
Anthony Davis did that.
Is not.
He did that.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. He
But
did
that's
that in
the
that,
thing. Anthony Davis
2016, 2017 season when they were like neck and neck with the Thunder and they got in through the 8th seed. He's done that before.
I don't think he did.
He did.
I don't believe he did. I don't think
it
he's
was.
that kind of
It was
player.
2014, 2015. Literally got to the Western Conference first round against the Golden State Warriors. Got swept 0-4, 45 and 37.
And who else was on that team?
Let's see.
Who else played on that team?
Tyreek Evans, Omira Sheik, Ryan Anderson, Alex Agencia, Drew Holiday, Eric Gordon, Jimmer Fredette, Quincy Pondector, Austin Rivers. Ooh, good old John Salmons, Jeff Withy. Come on,
Withy. Yeah.
Witty. Like he dragged that team.
Drew and Eric Gordon.
It wasn't good Eric Gordon though. Eric Gordon put up 13.4 points per game. Drew Holiday wasn't even that great either. 14.8.
He's never been an offensive dynamo.
Anthony Davis has carried his team.
But here's the thing. Anthony Davis wouldn't have to carry because he wouldn't be the only thing. Like, you'd be bringing him. The true target is Kawhi. Like, he's the true target for the Clippers. If you're bringing in Kawhi and then another max with an Anthony Davis trade, Anthony Davis would not have to be the main guy on that team. The only question for me is, what's that second free agent? Do you go with the point guard, try to get a Kyrie or Kemba, and then you can ship one of your young point guards in that Anthony Davis deal if needed? Or do you go after a Jimmy Butler? Because, yes, people are going to throw out that, DeMarcus Cousins is going to be a free agent, but if you're throwing out a max to, let's say, Kyrie and Kawhi, you're not going to have enough money to throw that to Boogie because he's going to want more than he's making right now.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with them is they're really not tied up big with cap space. I mean, the biggest thing is Gallinari, and you're talking about getting rid of him in a trade.
Well,
he's the only one making
done
over
at the end of next year. Like, his contract's off the books.
I mean, just to say, like, if you want to free up as most space as possible, that's the really only bad contract they have.
It's not even a bad contract if he's healthy.
No, but I'm just saying, like, he's the only player. He's the only player next year that's going to be making over $8 million.
Right.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. Like, and also, do you want to be paying Danilo Gallinari $22 million? No. I mean,
depends on who you are. If you're the Pelicans, who, hey, we're not looking to make a run, and it frees up cap space at the end of the year.
I'm just saying, for when you're trying to sign a free agent, I'm not saying that Danilo Gallinari is a bad player. I'm just saying
19, 6 and 2 on 44 and 42% shooting from 90 from the line.
When did I say he's a bad player?
Like, he's got a 20 per.
When did I say?
I know person's not a great stat, but like, it's I'm just saying. You said it was a bad contract. Think $20 million
compared to Lou Williams at $8 million.
Yeah, Lou
for
Williams
3 years.
A bargain contract because he's a one half of the court player.
But I'm just saying, like, they're like
$20 million for 20 points.
I'm not saying that he is a bad player. I'm just saying that I don't want my biggest contract on my team being Danilo Gallinari.
Say that then, because you said the word bad contract. And I got
what
defensive.
I think is when I'm paying Danilo Gallinari 22 to be my best player, that's a bad contract because I'm not going to be a good team.
Right.
Right?
After a playoff team over somebody like
and that's a deal that's been tried to be shopped for the past 3 years.
Yep.
Like, that's been a deal he was in the Blake Griffin trade as well. Like, that was
his injuries really cut him down, unfortunately.
I'm not trying to bash Danilo Gallinari. I'm just saying, like, that. I think that's a bad contract.
Yeah.
I just think that them moving into next year, it's tough to go for a youth movement, in my opinion, for this rebuild because you have Shea, you have Jerome Robinson, you have Shamet, and you have Zubac. I just don't know if they have the ability to build up enough youth in the next couple of years. Because typically when you start this rebuild, you have your number one pick. You have a first round pick, but they aren't really tanking for anything. So that was one thing with this when we were like, oh, they're trying to tank for a better draft pick, or they're just trying to tank to be. Yeah, there's no benefit to it.
Yep.
So I think that was the one thing.
To me, the draft picks, don't mean to cut you off, Sean, but the draft picks aren't for them to use. It's for them to use in trades and stuff. Not like, hey, we're going to pick.
No, but I'm saying for 2019.
I want to trade these.
I'm saying for this year.
Well, even if they would have gotten that pick, in my mind, it would have been usable in a trade rather than them making that pick. Like
what if they trade the 2021 Heat pick and something else for a slot this year if they like somebody in the first round?
That.
Like they have the ability, they have leverage, and they have capital.
But should they use that for, again, this is what the whole conversation is going towards, should they use it for a youth movement or should they use it for big free agents or big stars that are already established?
It's hard because the draft happens before free agency.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You don't know what Kawhi's going to want to do in free agency. You don't know what
Kyrie or Kemba.
Like that's wrong. All those are unknowns. If you have the ability to go get an Anthony Davis, sure, put it on the table for him. But I don't see this team performing any better than what he was doing on the Pelicans. They have less talent on the Clippers.
But it's a different. Even with Kyrie and another max.
No, but you don't know that. But you don't know that.
Yeah, I know.
Here's the thing that I will say.
Just asking.
Here's the thing that I will say for that Anthony Davis thing. It's a completely different market. You're in Los Angeles, which is more attractive than New Orleans. Yeah. And again, we just talked about their only bad contract being Danilo Gallinari.
Could be shipped for him.
Yeah, exactly. But even you look at the 2020 year. Like let's say they miss out in 2019. They have a club option for Shea Gilgeous, which they'll pick up. They have a club option for Landry, which they'll pick up. That's like about $6 million there. Lou Williams will stay for $8 million, so that's $14 million. They could decline the Jerome Robinson deal, so that will free up. Let's just say they'll decline it because I don't think he's going to take that big of a step. So that would be put him at $14 million. That's it. They have $14 million on deck, and then they have the Anthony Davis contract that they'll end up picking up, and they have to re-sign him. But outside of that, I mean, you still have the leverage in 2020.
So you're just hoping that you can re-sign AD is your hope. Then.
Exactly, and if you have Anthony Davis, you have Los Angeles, and you have a fuck ton of cap.
Yep.
You're going to be in a good spot.
That could be attractive
to go after. So I think that.
As long as they don't nix it and sign a bunch of B tier players for a bunch of too much money.
If they just don't Pelicans.
I don't think West is going to do that.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing with the Clippers is the fact that I think you have to get one of them first before this even starts and rolls. And whether that's trading for Anthony Davis, whether that's signing a player, I think you have to get that ball rolling. I just don't know exactly what's the most intriguing part of the Clippers. Do you think that them
playing it out and just going with like we're team basketball, we're going to run through and use our draft picks? Do you think that's a route that they could take?
Like not go after a big star?
If they miss on say they miss on Kawhi and Kemba and Kyrie, say none of the big guys go there. Like, do you think that they're cool taking like smart contracts like what they did with Lou Will, like what Montrezl on an 8-8 deal? Do you think they could keep doing that and develop that young talent and hope that they land like a star in 2020, 2021
through the draft?
And slow roll it, or do you think that because they have the money available that they're going to try to force a star to the Clippers?
I think the fact that they're in Los Angeles means that they're going to go after a star. Okay. Because if you're in that big of a market, and yes, it's not the Lakers, so automatically you're taking down a step.
Yep.
I think that you can still draw attention to yourself. Like the Clippers have done in the past with Blake, DeAndre, and CP3.
Yeah.
And I think having a coach like Doc Rivers that just kind of pushes you towards going towards that star movement, because you also have so much cap.
I understand.
So what's really holding you back from it? And it's really why it would really just be the players not wanting to go there.
Yeah.
So that's why the question is what's intriguing about Los Angeles in your mind? Because I think it is an option, but I think since they are Los Angeles, it's not the option that they want to do.
Well, and that's why in my mind I kind of first answer your question. Let's say they whiff on Kawhi.
Yeah.
I don't see Jerry West going,
They whiff on everything. They're not able to trade for Anthony Davis goes to Boston. Kyrie stays in Boston.
I don't see Jerry West being the guy that goes, oh my God, we need a max deal. He's going to sit back and go, no, I know what does successful, and we didn't hit. I don't need to force anything. The thing that I would worry about is if they don't hit on anyone this year, look at next year. I'm just going to throw out some of the names that are right now for sure. Kyle Lowry, Gordon Hayward, Paul Millsap, Al Horford, DeMar DeRozan, Otto Porter Jr., Andre Drummond, Anthony Davis, Hassan Whiteside. Not as many big names as we're seeing this year. So it's like, if you don't hit this year, next year's free agent pool
not as cool.
might be a little bit worse.
Unless you guys take one and one.
Yeah.
If the Boston Celtics are able to get Anthony Davis and they re-sign Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward's picking up his player option.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown will be a restricted free agent. Will they be able to match that? They can throw a ton of money off at a guy like Jaylen Brown.
So much financial tax or luxury tax.
Karis LeVert, also a restricted free agent. There's a lot of restricted free agents that they might be able to go after. And I think that's one thing. If they have a ton of money and they throw money at guys that are teams that are kind of locked up cap wise and they're not able to match those guys, I think that's something they can definitely make a play after. I just think the big thing for them is, if they miss out on AD, and let's say he goes to Boston, they miss out on Kawhi, and none of the free agents go there, it's just I think the question I'm asking is what makes them intriguing for free agents? So even if they have this money and they're able to throw out money and they're able to give everybody a max, what makes them an exciting team to play for? Is it Doc Rivers? Is it the city?
Say, does Doc
is
do
it Jerry West?
I respect him as a head coach. I just don't know, is he a player's coach to that point? I think he's worked really well with younger talent. I think the older talent with him, he obviously succeeded in Boston, but going to play with the big three, or they're the equivalent of a big three with the Clippers, like we saw that cap on him, and I don't know if that was him or Chris Paul or injuries, whatever it was, he just couldn't get together. Now he's playing with a team of role players, and they're succeeding. Do you think that, do stars want to play for him at this point?
The biggest thing that he's done, and it's just giving up that GM
that's
role.
the best thing they
and
could
I think
do.
that the fact that he's not controlling those players and controlling the moves, I think that is something that is absolutely huge for him. He's able to focus on coaching, and he's showing that he's a fantastic coach. So I think that there's no reason why players would not want to play for him. Because
I know Chris Paul had made some offhand comments when he went to the Rockets about it. He's a dick.
It's also easy to say that when you're just leaving that team.
I understand. It's one of those things where I've never been too hot or too cool on him, and I know the city of LA is really the biggest thing they have going for them. I love their young talent. I think Shea and Shamet are an amazing future backcourt because honestly, Shea he looks so good this year for a long stretch, and I think that they're absolutely locked in on him being the guy. Shamet, hopefully he continues to shoot as well as he does, and he grows defensively just so he's league average at least. They're in great business then. They really, really need to bring in some more talent on that wing position, though. I'm with you. I think that taking some stabs at guys who could be restricted free agents could go a long way.
I got a plan for you guys. All right, and we'll go to Ricky next, but this one just kind of popped in my head. This is based off of the fact that I don't think these teams will have the hard. I think the hard cap will kind of limit what they'll be able to do. I know they'll be able to go over the luxury tax because they'll maintain most of these guys' bird rights. But a guy that's out there that plays for the Los Angeles Lakers, and if they sign Kyrie Irving, and if they're they lock up themselves too much,
Talking about BI.
Brandon Ingram is out there. He's a restricted free agent, and maybe they could just steal that away from the Lakers.
That'd be dirty.
Anthony Davis, if he goes to Boston and doesn't sign a long-term deal, will be a free agent, and you could sign him. And Jaylen Brown. And I think Anthony Davis, Jaylen Brown, and Brandon Ingram would be absolutely disgusting. With Lou Will running the point, or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
I mean, Brandon Ingram runs point, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think that there's ways for them to attack.
There's a lot of
because they have so much cap space.
Yeah.
They have so many draft picks. I think right now they're heading in the right direction, whether they win or lose, because, again, they're not helping a draft or hurting a draft stock at all because they don't have their pick. I just think that this team, it's just really what's going to be the biggest selling point for them. And Jerry West has obviously been able to do it before, selling players on teams, especially Los Angeles. So I think that they have the right pieces in place. They just need to execute.
Well, and here's the thing I'm kind of thinking, and it kind of goes back to something I think you said earlier in the segment, Sean, was how important is it for them to make the playoffs? Yeah. Why not make the playoffs, keep your pick? Well, if you're talking about selling a free agent, let's just say Kawhi. Yes, it's LA. That's number one. But if you can say, yeah, we were the 7th seed with the ragtag of guys that we had this year. We made the 7th seed even after we traded Toby and Bobby. We were still in the playoffs. Think about what we could be with you. Look at what this Denver team has been doing. I know they weren't added free agents, but hey, if they're able to go from 9 to 2, think about what we can do. And depending on what happens to the Warriors, if they lose Kevin Durant, which will probably happen in my mind, they're probably not going to lose Clay. They'll still keep that core going. But if they lose Kevin Durant, the Warriors become a little bit weaker of a team. They lose DeMarcus Cousins, which they probably will, because he'll probably be looking for a close to max deal.
The Clippers could grab Boogie.
Right there. Well, that's the thing. Could you get Kawhi and Boogie, Kawhi and Jimmy? You can go different ways, but that's what you're selling them on. Hey, the Warriors are getting worse. The Rockets this year have not been as strong a team that they were the year before. You can come here on a team that's already making the playoffs and make us instantly better.
Yeah.
For the Clippers, are they heading the right way in the rebuild?
I think they are. I think we literally just spent 30 minutes talking about all the possibilities they have. That's in a good place. When you have multiple routes you can take, options is money. Well, That's the thing.
And that's the thing I want to ask you guys.
Damn. I knew it was coming.
Just with free agents, with the 2 maxes that they have, who would be the guys that you target and want to, like, if it is a A+ offseason for the Clippers, who are getting those 2 maxes from them?
It's Kawhi plus
Kawhi
Kevin Durant. Well, you said that's an A+.
Well, hey, like Kevin Durant is an option. Like, would he sign with the
Kevin
Clippers?
Durant would be an A+ offseason. I don't think anybody can see that coming.
But that's the question. Would Kevin Durant want to sign with the Clippers?
It's not what you asked me.
If we're talking about the
you just sparked a different question.
If we're talking about the legacy against him versus LeBron, KD, I mean,
could you imagine
winning the Clippers won first?
Well, that's the thing. What better than go to his city, become the king of Los Angeles,
LA from LeBron?
Yeah, finally flip the Clipper-Laker thing. Yeah, and you win the first NBA championships in 2008, 2009, in the Staples Center since Kobe did it. I think that would be the biggest fuck you. I think at least A+ for them. I don't think it really matters on Kevin Durant. But they need to land a big star, and that's pretty much Kawhi, Jimmy Butler, or Kevin Durant.
Yep.
I would say Kawhi would be the one, and then I think to pair next to him, I think it would be Jimmy Butler. I think defensively that team would be fucking nasty.
Oh, Shea, Jimmy, Kawhi, 1, 2, 3. It's just God.
Yeah, I think that would be the pairing that I would like the best.
Yeah.
But I don't think Jimmy Butler is pretty much going to be available. I think he's going to stay with Philadelphia. So I would probably say that their alternate route would be Kawhi being the number 1 guy, and then trading for Anthony Davis. I think that would be their A+. I don't think they really need to use those 2 max. I think filling out the roster would probably be the smartest thing. I think that's what they can do. And also having 2 stars like Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard be disgusting. So I think that would be the A+ for them, is signing Kawhi or Kevin Durant and trading for Anthony Davis, which I think is possible, but I don't know if they'll have the best package for Anthony Davis. But getting those 4 picks is helping.
Yeah, I'm exactly there with you, Sean. I think you nailed it spot on. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
I'm looking up one thing, and the thing I'm looking up is to see. I couldn't remember if Jerry West and Kevin Durant overlapped when he joined the Golden State. Maybe that's the only other thing I'm thinking. If they did overlap, could Jerry West be a guy to? Hey, you want to stay in this like tech? Because I know the big thing we bring up is like, oh, he wants to stay on the West Coast where all the tech stuff is happening.
All the New York people are bringing up the fact that Kevin Durant apparently moved all his businesses to New York, but they have a crazy high business tax or something like that. So why else would he be doing that if he's not going to New York? It's
going to be so crazy. Free
he
agency,
could just be a bad business guy.
Free agency can't get here quick enough in my mind.
Yeah, we've never heard of basketball players going broke after they finish it, right? Never happened.
Final thoughts is we all think that they're going the right way just because the options they have.
All right. Regardless of which option route they take, they got options.
Camera Dad, thank you so much for listening to this segment. Let us know your thoughts on the Clippers rebuild. Are they going in the right way? Are they attacking this in the right way? What are your thoughts on the Clippers rebuild in 2018, heading into 2019 and 2020? It is 2019, my bad. Anyways, but let's move into our favorite topic. We are talking about the dampest of dudes, the soggiest of shooters, the moistest of men. These are our wet boys. These are the guys that absolutely popped off in the past week, had historic performances, insane stat lines, just things that were absolutely memorable. There was an insane amount of candidates. We have a lot of honorable mentions, but we have the 3 that stood up, in our opinion, above the rest. And Ricky Widmer, you're going to start off with your typical Chicago Bull pick.
Well, I mean, way to spoil it, but also I got a little story time. First off, honorable mention D Wade. I wanted to pick you so badly, but I couldn't.
Hey,
because
who did D Wade play for?
Played for the Bulls.
Oh,
also played for the Miami Heat. Who's
honestly,
right
I want to do a study into your wet boys, and I think like
most of them are Bulls and Warriors.
I think 90% to 95% have either played for the Bulls, are Chicago Bulls, or the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, probably. But this is a wet boy that I called. Let's say last Saturday we recorded the podcast. Dave and I went out to dinner. We are sitting in the kind of waiting area, waiting to get a table, watching Bulls Celtics.
Yeah.
And I texted the group chat and I said, Zach LaVine is my wet boy. He did not let me down, Sean. Not only did he have a 40-plus game against the Celtics in a win.
He had an 11-point game against the Grizzlies.
I was going to say he had a clunker against the Bucks, but it was the Bucks and we only lost by 11. No, the Grizzlies, he had a 30-point game and then 47 in the quadruple overtime spectacular
only 47.
against Trae Young and the Bulls. Dude, their legs were tired, and you could tell.
I'm
late
sorry.
in that
Only
game.
47's a thing I can say because my wet boy.
He also was high flying, jet flying, styling and profiling. Woo!
Yeah, that's 6 points a quarter. Great wet boy.
Zach LaVine, you my wet boy. Shout out to the Bulls.
I love Zach LaVine, so I'm just taking shots at this point. But I'm just saying, like, if you think 40, 47,
That was good for Zach LaVine.
47 and 8 quarters.
He's not on the same
I'm just going
level.
with James Harden, who's the best shooting guard in basketball.
One's an MVP candidate, the other
One
is
is the MVP, reigning MVP, about to be 2-time MVP. So I'm just tossing out there. James Harden, he's amazing. I know he couldn't shoot from 3 until this last game, but in that last game, he dropped 58 points, people.
Is it that impressive, though? I mean, yes.
I'm going to throw things at you, Sean. Every week we have the same argument. Look.
I don't know. I just think that there's other guys that like...
The other guys do deserve love, which is why I appreciate what you're doing in yours for your wet boy, or your post-wet boy segment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just James Harden. He's amazing. Give him credit.
I think that the 39 points is something that, over the 3 games is something impressive. It's really, if he didn't have the 58, though, he wouldn't be a wet boy, right?
He's going to average 36 points in the season.
But if he didn't have the 58, he wouldn't be a wet boy, right?
Probably not, because his past 2 shooting performances were 1 of 11 from 3 and 0 of 10 from 3. So that would have made it pretty difficult for me to justify.
But really, how wet boyish are you if you sit out the Warrior game?
He was hurt, and he came back and played hurt again.
The team beat the Warriors without him. I mean, to me, not MVP, because you're not valuable if your team can beat the Warriors without you.
Yeah, so, I mean, let's look at Markelle Fultz and the Magic. Markelle Fultz is not valuable.
Yep, there you go.
Anyways, let's move into wet boy. I think that there's going to be no complaints on this one. Yes, he was 1-2 this week, but Karl-Anthony Towns is a goddamn monster. 37.7 points, which will round up to 38. 18.7 boards a game. He had 4 assists, 1.3 blocks, 3 turnovers, shot 60% from the field, 47% from 3, and a good old 67% from the free throw line. But I mean, you look at Karl-Anthony Towns, I think we sleep on him because of Jokic, because of Embiid. But Karl-Anthony Towns deserves respect. He's a guy that is extremely efficient on the offensive end. He is so talented and gifted when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. And yes, he doesn't have that great aggressiveness. He can block shots. He's near 2 a game this year. But he's not a great defender.
No.
But I think we overlook that too much because he is just so dominant on the offensive end. And putting up 38, 19, 4 is something that cannot be scoffed at. And Karl-Anthony Towns deserves all the love. Also was in a car accident too, so hopefully feeling better.
Post-car accident, he's actually played better.
So, no, I'm not going to say that.
So the tip of the day.
Don't get in a car accident. That's the tip of the day. Do not get in a car accident. It's not going to make you better at basketball. But we did have so many guys that we do want to give shout-outs to. First off, Mitchell Robinson in the past 3 games, 30 minutes per game, 76% from the field, 80% from the line, 11.7 boards, 4.3 blocks, and about 15 a game.
And averaging 6 fouls a game.
4.3. But still, he's averaging the same amount of blocks per game as personal fouls.
Yeah.
But he's been a goddamn monster.
He has.
New York got a great one, and we told y'all. Yeah. We put him at 15 in our last mock. We put him at 15 to the Wizards. He fell all the way to the second round. That was a big mistake.
Bet you the Wizards regret that.
Oh, for sure. Could you imagine if John Wall was healthy, Bradley Beal was healthy, and Bradley Beal was healthy, and Mitchell Robinson was man down that 5 spot? Nasty.
Yeah. Giving a little more than Troy Brown Jr. maybe.
Yes. Next guy up is Brandon Ingram. He's averaging 28, 6, and 3 on 60% shooting, 58% from 3, and 73% from the line. You look at the Lakers; they are 1-3 in those games, but he has been something phenomenal in the past 4 games for the Los Angeles Lakers, extremely turning it on. Blake Griffin deserves a shout out there, 2-1. 34% from the field, which is why he wasn't a wet boy, but 40% from 3, also 19 points, 7 boards, 7 assists. He did have a triple-double, 20, 10, and 10 against the Pacers. Trae Young is probably the biggest one, probably the biggest snub for most people, not getting a wet boy. You have to look at him from the 23rd on, 36 points per game, 10.5 assists, 46% from the field, 50% from 3, and 90% from the line. Apparently, I did say something in our mailbag that Trae Young wasn't having like some scoring performances or something. I mentioned Trae Young scoring, and he drops 47 or 49 last night against the Bulls. I'm surprised Ricky didn't go with him. Kemba Walker also deserves some love. I'm telling you, there's two more. There's so many guys.
It was just a week of amazing performances.
This is why I said we should have given out 2 wet boys each.
It's not the game. 28 points per game for Kemba Walker.
We've
5
changed
assists,
the game so much.
3 steals.
Not really.
47% from
we've made adaptations, but go on.
47% from the field,
Name
35% from the 3, and 91% from the line. Kemba Walker had a phenomenal 4 games, 1 and 3 though. And then Tobias Harris, the last one, 2 and 1. The 76ers were. He played 37.9 minutes a game, 60% from the field, 45% from 3, 92% from the line, 7 boards, 2 assists, and good old 27 points for Toby. Those are our wet boys and our honorable mentions.
Yeah, it's
That's a lot.
pretty busy week. Do you love basketball post All-Star break? Like, this is just, we're getting high quality now.
I'm shocked that Trae Young didn't get that. Ricky, why didn't you go with Trae Young?
Because I called
He called his shot.
last Saturday.
Literally.
Zach LaVine.
But Trae Young was better.
Hours after finishing our podcast, he called his shot a week in advance. Man has cojones.
It's not that impressive.
He's got cojones.
I don't know. I think that Trae Young deserves it. And I will ask this question.
The real question is why didn't I go with Laurie Markkinen? That's the real question.
No, it's not. The question that I want to ask out before we get into the question I want to throw out there before we get into the fantasy stuff is: does Trae Young have a shot at the Rookie of the Year?
0.
Why? If he continues
it's already
this,
been decided.
If he continues
if he continues to average what, like 30 something, yeah. If he averages 36
and
10, yeah, sure, he can be Rookie of the Year. Do you think he's going to?
No.
Then that's your answer.
I mean, he's got a shot.
Luka's going to continue putting up 20, like 7 and 5 for the rest of the year, no problem.
20 and 7 and 6.
He went up to 6.
20.9. So he's actually at 21. He's 20.9, 7.3, 5.7 on 43, 35.
And Jalen Brunson's playing really
72.
well with him. I like that now.
Yeah,
So.
Jalen Brunson's a sleeper too.
Hey, as long as Trae Young is like battling him for the Rookie of the Year, it makes the trade worth it.
That's the thing is like, I'm really curious to see who the Hawks get because right now we went from like Trae Young start off the season shooting absolute trash percentages, like garbage. Now, if you look at him, I think it was like from January 1st on, like he's actually pretty good quality. I mean, defensively, he's still god awful, but at least it's close.
We never said he was a defensive maestro.
No, we said he was going to be the worst defender in the NBA.
From 2019, from January 1st. 21.9 points per game, 8.4 assists, shooting 43% from the field, and 39% from
that's
and 84% from line. So he's been fantastic.
His percentage has picked up a lot starting the year,
and only 4 turnovers a game, so 2-to-1 turnover to assist ratio. Anyways, let's jump into the big news. I kind of teased it a little bit.
Yeah, the biggest of news.
We're in first place. 101 points. We are in first place in the Fast Break Fantasy League.
Thanks, Trae Young.
Shout out to Trae Young. Shout out to Tobias Harris. Shout out to Russell Westbrook. Shout out to Blake Griffin.
Malcolm Brogdon too, right?
Shout out to Mitchell Robinson. Shout out to Malcolm Brogdon. Shout out to Otto Porter.
Oh.
And shout out to Malik Beasley as well. Our team's loaded.
This is
fucking
good.
loaded.
Did we know this? Did we know we were going to be this good? No.
I thought we were going to be
garbage.
Like early in the season, I was like, "Oh dear God, we're going to be garbage."
We were like floating 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
Sean,
we were garbage.
I give you credit. You have been playing the waiver wire like a goddamn maestro.
Thank you. But here's the thing: Russ was a draft pick.
Yep.
Trae Young was a draft pick. I think Otto Porter was a draft pick.
Brogdon
he was a draft pick.
Because he's efficient.
Blake was a draft pick. Drummond was a draft pick. Toby was a draft pick. So the core of our team was the 7 players.
Yeah.
All draft picks.
Nice.
DeMarcus as well. We picked up Taurean Prince. We picked up Mitchell Robinson. We picked up Beasley.
Yeah.
Picked up Danny Green. That was it. Everyone else, I'm pretty sure, has been a guy from our team.
Well done, guys. Well done.
From our draft. So you were also a part of the draft. So
I know. I just like saying well done, everybody.
We got that young. We got that good. What's it called? That good sleeper pick in Otto Porter in the 6th round.
I like how the only thing we're still trashing is field goal percentage and free throw percentage.
Yeah, right now we're 4th in field goals made, field goal percentage. We are still. Hey, I will say we haven't fallen. We've had 5 points in those categories since then. But yeah, we are now
monsters
9th
and everything else.
Yeah, 9th in field goal percentage and free throw percentage. 3-pointers made, we are 2nd. 3-point percentage, we are third. Rebounds, we are first. Assists, we are third. Steals, we are second. Blocks, we are third. And points, we are third. We have 101 total points.
3-point lead?
101 points, and Kyle Craig is 3 points behind us in second place. And if we look at his team, because that's the team that's been near first, he's been dealing with injuries. He has Drew, Joe Harris, Bogdan, LeBron, Jared Allen, Eric Gordon, Aaron Gordon, Rudy Gobert, Serge, D. Wade, De'Aaron Fox, Rocco, and Jeff Green. So
Rocco just got recalled today.
Jeff Green's been iffy, but he hasn't been bad.
Yeah.
Eric Gordon, injury concerns. So I think we can probably edge him out from here on out.
I hope so.
But thank you for all the help throughout the fantasy league. Hopefully we can maintain first place. And shout out to everybody who's in the league and still participating. We appreciate you guys' contributions. Final thoughts.
Gotta get my Starberries at the end of this year, baby.
Oh yeah, if we win them, we
get Starberries.
The winner gets Starberries. Do we all have to get Starberries, or can you just get Starberries?
I'm cool with just me getting Starberries.
I hope we have to pick out. Go on if you want to. Go to Starberry's website and pick out a color for Dave. Pick out a colorway for the Stephon Marbury shoes for Dave to pick. I think there was a pink one that I think you would look absolutely fantastic. It was turquoise and pink.
Okay.
The Sprinter turquoise and pink ones. Ooh, or the Kids Suburban Elite.
I can't wear kids. I've got large feet. It's not gonna work out. If they make
but
kids
if you
in
look
12s.
at, but if you look at the Kids Suburban Elite, they're pretty dope.
All right, Rick's pull up. Damn,
But anyways,
basketball's pretty cool.
we'll wrap up this podcast, at least for this segment. I don't know what you say podcast. We'll wrap up this
Are we
segment.
talking high tops or low
Look
tops?
at those.
Yeah, the Suburban
Kids Suburban
Elites.
Elites.
The ones that light up.
If they can make that big enough for me, I'm absolutely in.
The ones that light up, yeah. Just get 12 and a half C. I don't know what that means. Get 7. They're 4 pounds?
They got lights in them, man.
Jesus Christ. I'd rip my shoes. I'd rip those shoes in half. Come on. Get the kids. Get the light up
You
pink
Zion Williamson those shoes?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Zion Williamson, those Paul George.
I think I would rock the slates, the Starberry 3 slate.
No, I think
No,
you
I'm
should
going
get
the
the
pink
sprinters.
metallics.
The Sprinter. You guys see the Sprinters?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what you should get. The pink metallic or the Sprinters. Those are the ones you should get.
All right, we'll see.
Before we move into the final segment, definitely check us out on iTunes. That's where you can find the NBA Draft mailbag and our mock drafts from the past 2 weeks. 2 episodes that we recommend you check them out. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, go check them out as well. They're also on our YouTube page. And the mailbag does have timestamps, so you can jump around easily. We talked about 10 topics. It's an hour and a half long. Ton of content for you guys, so definitely check that out. But guys, I was reading an article from the guys from Draft Express, now on ESPN. It was published by Mike Schmitz of ESPN. He spent 9 days in Europe evaluating NBA draft prospects in Germany, France, Italy, Lithuania, Slovenia, Spain, Denmark, and Montenegro. Great to have that ESPN money so you could do that. That'd be super fun. But he starts off, and the big part of it is a profile on Sekou Doumbouya. And reading the article, I never thought to put him versus Rui Hachimura next to each other and kind of evaluate the two next to each other. It was kind of just like, these are the guys that I think. I never, for some reason, just put them next to each other because they both are forwards. They're both around 6'9". Sekou's a little bit leaner, not a little bit, a lot leaner than Rui Hachimura, but Hachimura, again, is older at 22 years old or 21 years old. So when I finally put them next to each other, I never understood why I had Rui Hachimura above Sekou Doumbouya. In our last mock draft, I had Rui Hachimura going 8th to the Pelicans and Sekou Doumbouya going 12th to the T-Wolves. And just rethinking about it and thinking about my philosophy and thinking about my ways of picking draft spots and slotting them in my big board, I have no idea why I had Sekou Doumbouya below Rui Hachimura because of his kind of raw palate that he does have, his clean slate, his youthfulness, his ability to be built up. I personally think that Sekou Doumbouya is a more intriguing prospect and a player that should be taken above Rui Hachimura. And then I realized that, Ricky, you're on the other side of the fence than me. And then I asked Dave, and Dave said he's on the fence just between the two of them. So we're pretty much just going to do Sekou Doumbouya versus Rui Hachimura. Who should be picked higher? Who has the higher ceiling, et cetera, et cetera. So, Ricky, I'm going to send it to you first. Give us the pitch on Rui Hachimura. What do you like about him? How does he pan out as an NBA prospect? I know you've been talking a lot about the whole Giannis thing. I don't really love that comparison, but talk about him.
And the thing is, first off, I want to say between the two, they are vastly different prospects. Where Rui Hachimura, I believe he's just over 21.
21 turned 21 on February 8th.
We know pretty much have an idea of, okay, what he could possibly be. Whereas you look at Sekou, he just turned 18. Not too long ago, I think end of last year, early this year.
December 23rd.
He just turned 18, so he's very young. And for me with Rui, like when I watch him play, he has everything that I want from a 3 at the next level. He can shoot. He can drive to the basket. Yeah, he's not the best defensive player out there, but he is capable of defending out there. He can assist the ball, doesn't turn over the ball a lot, can get to the foul line, can score points. He's got everything that I want. And the thing that I think hit it perfectly, and I want to give him a shout out, is one of our listeners, Kentaro Kadalek. I hope I said your name right. He actually hit me up about Rui this week, and he said, at Ricky Widmer, Rui Hachimura is 6'8". He is required to play power forward on the Gonzaga Bulldogs, but I think his position in the NBA should be small forward. He is putting on some weight because he plays the 4 in college basketball, but when he enters the NBA, he should lose some of his weight. Please look at this highlight of him going up against Josh Jackson, Jason Tatum, with him being skinnier. His jump shot looks much better than now. He is much faster too. And then he goes on to say he doesn't like Coach Few. Rui should be at the 3 in his opinion. And then asked me what I think. I'm the same way. Like, I think that Rui is going to be a 3 at the next level because you look at it too, Sekou's going to be 6'9", 6'10". Rui's 6'8". To me, 6'8" at the 4th, the next level, well, he'll get eaten alive.
Right now, Sekou Doumbouya lists in at 6'9". Could still be growing.
Yeah.
So that's for sure. And he used to be 230, and he's cut down significantly because he started taking his training a little bit more seriously. But the big thing with that, at least comment that I do want to say is, let's not blame Mark Few for trying to win basketball games.
No. It's not blaming him, but it's like...
But the reason why he's doing that is because Hachimura at the 4 gives them the best ability to win basketball games.
But in the NBA, he's probably like, I'm in the same boat. At the NBA, I don't want him playing the 4. I want him playing the 3.
I think they're both 3s in my mind. I don't think Sekou Doumbouya is going to be big enough to be a 4.
Well, Sekou's versatile.
He can always add on weight to play the 4, but I think he is very fluid at attacking the basket. I think he is a slasher similar to Hachimura, but I think his defensive upside is much more shown, and it has been shown overseas as well. And Hachimura, I think that he is athletic. I don't know if he's extremely athletic, but he is athletic. I just don't know if the defensive upside's there compared to Sekou, and I think right now you're seeing a flash of Rui's completed game, his because he's older, he's been under a great basketball coach in Mark Few. You see him on a great team. Sekou's kind of this unknown, but the big thing that I love about him is the fact that he is a little bit unknown, and he is such a blank, raw palette that has been playing for a long time overseas, but hasn't had it to click. And I think a big part of that is just him not being able to be in a culture that is focused solely on basketball. And he has now gone to a place in, I'm going to fuck up the name, but it's Limoges. He's in Pro and the LNB Pro A. But now he's kind of in a culture that is focusing more on basketball, and you're seeing the growth that he is able to do. And I think now coming over to the NBA to fully be focused on basketball, being in that culture, this is now your job. You're being paid for it, and being paid more than you would be overseas. I think that's going to give him that extra edge. And being 3 years younger than Rui Hachimura is something that is way more intriguing to me than taking a guy in Hachimura who has already been coached up, who has already been a part of a team, who's now going to have to go from taking it to be about winning games to then being a pro, where Sekou's not really doing that right now. Sekou's already a pro. I think that a big thing that we at least are overlooking for Sekou Doumbouya is the fact that he is only 18 years old and will be the youngest player in this NBA draft. And that is so important to me. I know he hasn't been extremely wowing overseas right now. He isn't putting up crazy stats like Luka was. He's in a completely different league than Luka was. And that's a reason why he's not going top 5 in this draft. But I think just because he's not exactly similar to Luka doesn't mean he should be looked at as a player that cannot have one of the higher ceilings in this draft. I think he has a massively high ceiling.
I'm going to throw out another similarity, and this isn't about game. This is basically because of age and they're both international players, is I feel like there are going to be some people that look at international players this year, like Sekou, and go, oh, well, look at Luka. Like, he's the same age as Luka, but like you said, they're not in the same place. The thing I look at is, where on the scale is Sekou? If the bottom is Frank and the top is Luka, where is Sekou? Because
I think that's completely unfair.
Because Frank was another one that came in 18. He's had 2 years now, and of course it could also be where he lands. But I don't think we can take that away of like with Sekou, where is he on that scale of the top end being Doncic and the low end being Frank?
I think that's a very poor low end, because I think Frank, I mean, there's guys that never come over. There's guys that still don't flash this much potential. Frank is still extremely young.
Of the ones that come over, like recency.
I think the low end would, if we're using at least NBA guys, it would probably be Georgios Papagiannis. Just because he was a guy that bounced around from teams, was immediately released by.
He was a teen pick, wasn't he? First round 13, in the 13, 13.
But we didn't even have him in our. Let's be honest. That was the Kings being the Kangs.
I'm saying Frank's a player that still has potential. Georgios Papagiannis is not a
that's what I'm saying.
A blip on the radar.
Is Sekou going to be a guy that you draft now and 2 years later? Like, how quickly is he going to make an impact? That's the question.
To me, the difference is the fact that Frank came over and need to fill into his body, where Sekou is basically a grown-ass man in an 18-year-old. And
he could still grow into his body.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like you said, he went up to 230. He's now cut back down to 210.
Yeah.
He's now taking his training more seriously. Like, Frank didn't see the inside of an actual workout room when he was over in Europe. But that's just, he was not that kind of a person. So I think that from a pure physical standpoint, Sekou is far more developed than what Frank was when he came over. Sekou definitely has a lot more strength to his game. At 6'9", he has an absolutely great first step. The thing when it comes to him that concerns me about when you're talking floor to ceiling stuff is, where's his basketball IQ going to be at? Because he has worked under some coaches in Europe who are basically, I would call them middle. I wouldn't say they're at the top end of coaching, but I don't know European basketball inside and out, so correct me if I'm wrong. But if he has the opportunity to come over to the NBA, I think that will be the big first question is, where is he from a basketball IQ standpoint? Because from the few clips that I've been able to watch of him and the 2 games I've actually seen all the way through, it looks like a lot of the time he is leaning heavily, and rightfully so, on his athleticism to win him a lot of one-on-one matchups, to constantly keep that pressure on teams defensively. He absolutely has an advantage over a lot of the guys in Europe. But when it comes to catching guys going, I think the one article I was reading was like, oh, well, he's always chasing people around screens. He doesn't seem to always pick up on off-ball movements as quickly as other players do. Like, it's just there's a lot to the basketball IQ argument, because he has not played in the NBA or even at NCAA, where I think college coaches are much more revered from our side just because we're more familiar. So that's a question for me.
Biggest knock, and that's fair. I think that the IQ is a question that is important. I don't know how easy it is for him to pick it up exactly.
Yeah.
I think he is fairly fluent when it comes to English, so I think he will be able to communicate from what I understand. But the big thing that has been a knock, or something that has been questioned, is his ability to lock in. That's something that Schmidt says. He says his fundamentals, discipline, and consistency can improve on the defensive end, especially off ball, as he's committing 6.1 fouls per 40 minutes. But Doumbouya can slide with guards, big body bigs, or cover ground in the blink of an eye to erase shots at the rim. Then one thing Taylor said, I think that's a coach. I don't know who Taylor is, who he's referring to in this article, but he says he fits into that positionless basketball mold. When he's locked in defensively, he's tough. So I think the biggest thing for him is just being locked in. And if he's locked in, that athleticism can really shine. And then I think once he comes over and is able to learn the game and able to pick up the system, and if he's into the right spot, I think that IQ can come. Because typically, I think the biggest thing for guys to succeed in the NBA is, being Luka level smart is going to surpass any athleticism. But also, if you have instinctual athleticism and you know where to be, that is something that's huge as well. Because let's look at Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson's committing 4 fouls.
That man bites on every single pump fake.
He's committing 4 fouls a game, but he also has 4.3 blocks a game. Yeah. So a big thing is how you're using your athleticism is instinctually. So I think if he's locked in, his instinctual athleticism will be able to make up for it. And one thing, too, just to put that, go back to Frank. Frank's also not 21 yet. He'll be 21 July 28th. So he's younger than a guy like Rui Hachimura. So it's like something where even if he's not developing right away and he's not putting up points immediately, I think it's something that he is the smarter pick because although he might not come into it right away, he might not be a guy who hits right away like a Kristaps or like a Luka. I think that he could be a slow grower. And even if he's not being a fantastic offensive scorer, being a stud, I think having the ability to be in the right place will be huge for him. And if he is in the right place, that might help his growth. Because I think Frank might not be in the right place. But let's look at a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis was in a fantastic place. He latched on to Milwaukee, and we see what that has been able to do. Now, I don't know if he's ever going to reach the level of Giannis, because I think that's exactly absurd to say he'll be Giannis level. But if he's able to latch himself onto a place and build up, I think that will be huge for a guy like Sekou Doumbouya.
That's why, for me, with the two, first off, like the biggest knock, and I'm going to use air quotes, knock with Sekou is how long is it going to take him to come into his own? Where it's like, I like the Giannis tie-in because look at what, from beginning to where he is now, what Giannis has been. No one thought that Giannis would be what he is today the day he was drafted. And Sekou could be a really good NBA pro. With me, there's just so many questions because also I know that the situations aren't apples and apples or apples and oranges because they're different players and their bodies are different. But it also depends on the team and their kind of timeline for everything. Where if they're a team that's like, hey, we can take Sekou, we like what he brings, to me, I like with defensively the versatility that I mentioned it before on the mock draft, that he can guard 2 3s and maybe 4s at the next level. What team is going to say, even if he doesn't develop, it takes 2 to 3 years, we're okay with that. And for me, the highest I could see him being picked is 9th by the Hawks, especially if the Hawks get a top 4 pick and don't go to Jarrett Culver, who all of us had, or Jarrett Culver, I should say, who all of us had at 5. Let's say they get an RJ, or they get a Cam, or they get number 1, and they get Zion, then that could change their number 9 pick. Why are you putting
the cap on that?
Because I don't think Sekou goes top 5. I don't think the Sun...
And also right now Atlanta would be 10.
Yeah, I don't think that... I'm going off of our mock that was obviously old, but I don't think he'll be top 5. I don't think the Grizzlies... I don't think he fits what the Grizzlies would want. I don't think he fits... Maybe the Wizards. I'll throw out maybe the Wizards.
But is it about fit?
Yeah, I think
that's a big thing.
With Sekou, with me, it's not like fit on the court more. It's more about timeline, where to me, Sekou is not going to be a guy that steps in day one and is Luka level. Like, he's coming in, contributing right away. There is going to be a grace period where he comes into his own, and what team can take a stab on that? And that's why, to me, I see him more in that 9 to 14, maybe 9 to 15 range of the draft.
But then what makes Rui more ideal for a team in that range above him? Because you have him above him. What makes Rui more ideal for those teams, especially the ones that you named?
Number one, age is a big thing. Where yes, he's already come into his own.
But he's 18, and what team is old in this range? Like what team is dying to get a guy who's 21 years old compared to an 18-year-old?
Well, like I had him go to the Grizzlies. I could see the Grizzlies do it. I could see the Wizards do it. They have John Wall and Bradley Beal. They could go after an older guy as well.
Why the Grizzlies then? Why the Grizzlies to Adam? Because their best and young piece was the youngest player in last year's draft, in Jaren Jackson Jr.
And with the Grizzlies, I've gone back and forth too, where maybe in the next mock I get shifted over to the Darius Garland pick. I haven't really solidified that, but for me at the time, I was just looking and it's like, hey, if Mike Conley's still going to be there, this is going to be a Grizzly team that wants to get better. And what do you go with? An older player in Rui Hachimura or an older player in DeAndre Hunter, and I picked between the two. For me, I just think that Rui's more of a player that can step in and help a team from day one more than Sekou. And if a team looks at it and goes, hey, we can wait for him to develop, then go with Sekou over Rui.
Why does day one matter when you're top 5?
Because there's some teams that want to get quickly out of that top 5. Where there's other teams that they're more putting it in the slow cooker and letting things go slowly.
Dave, what do you think?
I think that putting any pressure on a top 5, like there's so many guys who have been in a draft where they didn't look great for the first couple of years and then they got better. Like, you don't always need to deliver in those first couple of years.
Yeah.
And what Rui can do is we expect him to be able to hit that mark. I'm not sure that I'm on the side of Sean. I don't know that any of these teams at the top necessarily need to get there. The Grizzlies you mentioned as a likely candidate because of that's their. They seem to always think they're in playoff contention. I'm not going to talk more shit about the Grizzlies today. I think I hit my quota for that for quite some time. But I would be interested maybe in just a lot of these teams. Yes, that might be the case. But I look at the best older players who came out of the drafts in the past, whether it was Kyle Kuzma, Malcolm Brogdon, like guys like that. They go so much later because of their age. And I wonder why do we feel that Rui is still worth that top pick because of his, like, I get it, they're not putting up the same numbers in college that he did.
Yeah.
But it begs that question of, when you're a year older, 2 years older, 3 years older in this case, how much of a difference does that make in your draft stock? Just because we know you can score pretty well.
Yeah.
You can get some boards, yes, and you can dish out the low post, okay. Like, I don't know if that necessarily. You're making me question, like, also, is this guy a top 10 pick? Is he a top 12
How
pick?
much of his success is based on the team that he's on?
Is he the best player on his own team?
Like, last guy that I'm going to bring this up.
I love Brandon Clark.
We keep moving towards. That's a good point. But even with that Brandon Clark thing, let's say even Brandon Clark over Sekou Doumbouya. I'm going to go back to Giannis. I know I'm not. Sekou Doumbouya is not Giannis. I want to make that extremely clear. He is not Giannis. He will not be Giannis. He might be a very good player, but he's not going to be an MVP level.
You're saying he's going to be Kawhi Leonard.
He's going to be exactly. He's going to be Kawhi Leonard. Different player. Yeah. But let's look at that Giannis draft. Giannis went 15. We all know that. There's not a lot of stars in that draft. Anthony Bennett was number 1. Only guy you could say is a star is Victor Oladipo, but Giannis is clearly better. Giannis is the best player of that draft at 15. He was coming from Greece, fairly unknown, smaller guy, right? He had a lot of potential, but it was a potential pick, and you took a chance on him.
Yep.
2 slots above him, there was a center from Gonzaga who was a junior, Kelly Olynyk. If you're looking at Boston, who it was Dallas traded him to Boston. If you're looking at that pick, you're going to take Giannis, right? And it's laughable to even throw that out there. And it's just really the question of these guys who are in systems, who are fantastic players in this system, what is their top end? And what makes Hachimura's top end different to you, Ricky, compared to other guys who have come out of Gonzaga? Because you look at Gonzaga guys, there's no pros that right now are great in the
stars,
NBA.
yeah.
Well, and
Kelly O's like a good player.
Number one, I want to take that and just throw it out the window.
That's fine, but
you've gone against it with John Morant. Where people have said, well, how good could John Morant be?
Mine's different. Mine's saying because Gonzaga is so good that they have such a great system, it allows people to shine. It lets people see these players like Rui Hachimura because they're so deep into the playoff run. It's the same thing with Duke. It's the same thing with North Carolina. It's the same thing with Kentucky. These guys get looked differently because of the teams that they're on, because they are helped by the great coaching of Mark Few, John Calipari,
and
Coach
that's
K.
a little bit.
We talked about this with Nasir Little and Roy Williams. What stars are there from North Carolina that are on the floor? I'm just saying, like, John Morant's different is because, let's look at the pros that are in the NBA and how bad they are. That means since they're a small school, they can't produce pros. I'm not saying that Gonzaga can't produce pros because they're a small school. I'm just saying they have such a great coach that helps these guys develop. And then they're not able to grow that development because Gonzaga is such a culture, such a team mentality that it's stunted because Mark Few is such a excelled coach that they might never get that coaching at the next level.
Well, and the thing that I look at when I see Rui out there, like, is he obviously he's not a player where it's not like I'm watching Zion where I'm like, yes, he is the best player in college basketball. But I look at a guy, and yet again, it could be because early in the season I kind of fell in love with Rui, where it's like, hey, you know what? I like what he brings to the table. He's got a shot. He shoots well from the line. He's able to get to the basket.
Does he have a shot, though? Because he's not taking any threes.
Well,
and I know it's not in the system, but also, like...
Yet again, that's the thing of, like, you were talking about, what team is he on? Right now, he's playing more of the 4. And the thing that I look at, and this is a conversation that we could have, is... Yes, he only shoots about 1-3 a game on average, but he's making 46% of those threes. So to me, that tells me that the shot is there. It's
All
not
right.
like he has to fix his shot, and that just with
75%
more
from the line.
repetition,
But then again,
like with more repetition, he could potentially get that up.
But here, let's look at Giannis, for example. Giannis's rookie year, he took 1.5 threes a game, made 34%, and he's a shooter. And last year, he shot 76% from the line. Is Giannis a dangerous three-point shooter?
Actually, watch him in the last, I think 3 month split. He's actually picked up a ridiculous percentage.
In broad sense of terms.
No, he's not going to be
Is
Steph
Giannis
Curry.
a dangerous three-point shooter? I mean, I'm not saying Steph
Yes.
Curry. Is he a dangerous three-point shooter? Giannis, right now, although he could still develop into it, right now is not a deadly three-point shooter. I don't want Giannis taking 8 threes a game. Like, that was my question with Hachimura.
I don't see him being he's never going to be a deadly three-point shooter, but can he add enough of them to the game to make him a little bit more versatile? I think he can. I think the shot is there. It's just, why isn't he taking it enough? It's exactly what you said. That Bulldog team has a way that they work. This is how we win games, and it's not something to where, hey, I have to do this to get noticed on scouts. The thing with Rui that's going to make or break his draft stock is the combine. When we see him in drills, when we see him go on the 5-on-5, that is what we're going to get with Rui, watching him going up against this draft class.
The thing with Rui is 23 of the 30 games he's played, he's taken 1 or less threes. So that's the thing. It's just like, yes, he's shooting 46%.
And
but
like
it's
the one
we
three
haven't
that he
seen-
took, one of the threes he took against BYU recently was point
He didn't
guard.
take
Point guard comes around, or then it was a long two that I
didn't
watched
take
where
a three in any of the BYU
they
games.
passed it back and he shot it and made it. Where it wasn't like him driving up and creating space. No, they threw it to a wide open Rui and he took the shot.
I just don't know. Even if the mechanics are fine, it just doesn't mean he's going to be a 3-point shooter.
Well, and I'm not
it's
saying
just
it's
what
going to
you're
be a
comfortable with.
point shooter, but he's going to add it to his game.
Ben Simmons just isn't comfortable taking threes. Like, I don't know if he's going to be a guy who ever has that next level in him. And also, it's a college three. What happens when you step back a little bit? Like, that's my big questions with Hachimura. It's like, yes, he can always develop it, but also he's 21. And Sekou can develop a better shot because he's got 3 more years on him to develop that shot. And Sekou has 3 more years to get to where Rui is, physicality-wise. Like when we're talking body-wise, if they're both the same height, like he has those 3 more years to gain up that muscle, to gain up that size. And then you look at just like the...
But do you think offensively he'll ever be where Rui's at? Because I think that Rui's able to get to the hoop very easy. I think that'll translate to the NBA, where Sekou, his shot has been questionable at times. I haven't really seen him dominate since the under-18 games.
Yeah, that's a good
year.
point.
So that's the thing is, offensively, I get they play differently they play young players differently, but it just comes to the point where it's like you look at his games and yeah, he's good for anywhere from like 6 to 12 points, and that's about the middling range. He didn't do anything in the playoffs recently, so I just look at him and go, is he someone who is going to top out as a potential, yes, you're an athletic freak, but you might just be a good defender, bad shooter? Or do you think that his offensive game can evolve? Do you think that he can put a shot in there? Because I look at Rui and I go, that guy can get me buckets. He can play okay defense. I look at Sekou and I know physically he's more gifted, but can he get better at scoring?
Mm-hmm. I think the thing with Sekou that stands out to me, at least scoring-wise, is he's not afraid to drive and attack the basket. So as a cutter, I think that he can be extremely dangerous. In transition, I think he's going to be as good as near Rui level. I think Rui's pretty good in open space. I think Sekou will be good at attacking the basket as well in open space. And again, he's still got that 3 years to develop that.
I understand.
So if he's put in the right system, and I don't think his shot's necessarily broken at all. Like I think the base is fine. I think the actual shot is fine. It's just the fact that I don't know if he's comfortable in the spot that he's in. So I don't think we're talking about Sekou having a broken shot at all. I don't think he's going to need to strip it down and rebuild it.
Doesn't have an amazing free throw percentage. His shot from 3 has not been great.
But the actual shot isn't bad.
The motion itself, I don't know.
Yeah, the motion isn't bad. It's fairly quick.
Yeah.
His feet pretty much stay under him. It's straight up and down. It's nothing like he's leaning forward, lunging forward. He goes up and
from
forward.
the hip.
Yeah, and he's shooting like right in front of his forehead too.
Shot Dr. Sean.
So hey, I fixed yours,
Coach Dave.
and then you couldn't do it. But yeah, no, I think that the thing with Sekou is like the shot form is there, And I think that if you have a shooting coach and you have, this, you have a shot doctors over here, if he starts working with Drew Hanlon.
By the way, just to make that point, Giannis, December, shot 22% from 3 on 2 attempts. In January, it was up to 33% on 2.6 attempts. And in February...
Nice, Dave.
In February,
Classy.
It was 40% at 2.8 attempts.
Okay, so he had one good month.
He did progress in 1 year. Do you not realize that? That's incredible. Like, that's
1 month, Dave.
I don't care. It's 3 months in a row of straight progress. He's added more attempts, and he's gotten better at shooting them.
All right, here. He was 0 of 3, 0 of 2, 0 of 2, and so he had 3 games where he was 0 4.
Individual games
he had
are cool.
a 3 of 4.
I'm just talking about a month.
He had a 3 of 4, he had a 2 of 3, and he had 3 of 3. Like, he had 3 good games. It doesn't mean he's going to turn into a great 3-point shooter.
I'm not saying
it's
great,
progress.
but I'm saying the fact
progress.
that in 3 months he went from shooting 22% on 2 threes a game to 40% on 3 threes a game is pretty impressive.
He also played less games, though. That's what I'm saying.
Only give you the month count.
He probably had stretches where he had good shots, but in December he probably had some of those games where he was 0 for. I'm looking at the stats right now. He went 0 for 3, 0 for 2, 3 for 3, 1 for 3, 2 for 3, 0 for 2, 1 for 2, 3 for 4. I'm not wowed by any of those numbers.
Yes, but Giannis is able to add a shot, and in 3 months he's consistently improved. And this is year 1 of Coach Bud and the shooting coach who came over with him. So I would just say it's doable to improve a shot like that.
Yeah.
So Sekou should have some hope there, but I think it's you're putting a lot of faith into he lands in the right system.
But I don't think he's as bad as a shooter as Giannis is. That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's when we're talking
I don't think so either.
Young Giannis. I think he's got a better start than Giannis did. Giannis, it's taken 5 years, 6 years to develop that. I don't think it's going to take Sekou that long.
But
I think
it took Giannis until he had a coach. Can I just say that out loud?
That's fair.
And not get yelled at because they think that's the big thing. Is you're saying what if he lands in the right system? What if he doesn't?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What if he lands on a team what if he gets franked?
But
where he's stuck on a team where he has no help from the coaching staff. They drafted him to be a triangle player, and guess what? We don't run the triangle anymore. I've got a terrible coach who won't give me consistent minutes, randomly benches him. What if he gets put into a situation like that? Because I think Rui would thrive in a team like the Knicks where it's just everything fucking goes.
Well,
here's run ISOs.
Here's the thing it's a big thing of spot for any prospect.
If he lands on the Spurs or the Heat, of course I think he'll be fucking amazing.
But I think one thing that if he goes to Minnesota where I put Sekou, I'd be worried about his development because we don't know who the coach is. We don't know. We look at the development of that team so far, and Cat is just naturally gifted. He was a #1 pick. I think Okogie's getting by on a lot of his athleticism. But outside of that, who's developed extremely well in the Minnesota system since Kevin Love? Not Wiggins. Wiggins is just good, and he's a good scorer. That's the thing. He's never gotten better. That's what I was trying to say. People might look and be like, oh, he's putting up 20 points. But, again, he's not gotten better.
But if you look
Wiggins.
and I'm just throwing this out, where you look at where Dave and I have him, I actually like both of those situations. Dave to the Heat. You got a guy like Spoelstra who's there. Their timeline isn't going to be winning right away. And then the Pistons as well, working with Dwayne Casey.
Well, how does that help him?
Because I like Dwayne Casey as a coach and can help his improvement.
What young players has he developed outside? I don't want to give him. I don't want to give him credit for Siakam, but
guru. But I would say coach stability with the Pistons is good. It's not like it's going to be like
Dave was saying.
Do we have stability?
If he doesn't make the playoffs again, he might be on the hot seat.
He's not going to be on the hot seat.
Right now he's barely in the playoffs.
Yeah, but
if he gets knocked out, he might.
I don't think they.
No, I'm saying next year. If he misses the playoffs 2 years in a row, he might be in the hot seat.
I think he's got 2 years easily guaranteed.
I'm just saying he'll be in the hot seat. I'm not saying he'll be fired. There's a difference between being fired and being in the hot seat.
He can sit on the hot seat for 2 years. Then I don't care. It's still going to be the head coach.
The other thing too with the Heat too is who have they really developed?
Yeah.
Justice has come along, but it's taken Justice a long time to come along.
But he was also uber raw when he came out.
Okay.
Who could be a really good situation?
Yeah.
The Celtics. Since they got so many picks, if Sekou's there at 14.
That's the worst option.
I think they're too logged because he's
won't
going
get minutes.
If he plays.
But if they trade some of them for AD, or if one of them gets RFA into another team.
But then you're put in the wrong situation of high pressure. High pressure, you're working with Stevens, but also can you get enough time because you have so many guys that need attention?
Yeah.
I think
I'd be afraid of that situation.
There's positives and negatives. I think that if we're looking top 10, because I have Rui in my top 10.
Yeah.
I think
and you're going to flip him coming into this next mock, you say?
Yeah.
You're likely. Okay.
Most likely. I think Memphis is a good spot for him to land.
Yeah.
I think Atlanta's a good spot for him
You're
to land.
talking Rui or Sekou?
Sekou Doumbouya.
Okay.
We'll talk about Rui. I think Atlanta is a good spot for him to land. I think Memphis is a good spot for him to land. I also think that, oddly, Washington would be good for him to land because Bradley Beal, John Wall, they've done a very good job of building those guys up, and I think that also is a credit to them as well. But I think having a veteran presence would be big for him to take that next step. So I think 5 through 7 would be a good spot for him because I think New Orleans is going to be a little bit iffy with all the commotion that could go around. But I think having Washington, Memphis, and Atlanta would be probably the 3 teams that I look at to take Sekou Doumbouya.
I mean, Memphis did sign Bruno to an actual contract, so
That's true.
I don't know. His spot might be taken. Is Sekou 2 years away from being 2 years away? I don't know.
Hope not. But I think those would be the 3 teams that would be nice for Sekou, unless you guys have a different team that is very clear in your mind, whether it be in the top 10 or not.
And I love Miami. I think that in my mind is one of the better ones. But that's just purely from a coaching standpoint. I think that they would be able to really do a good job for him. Washington, I'm afraid, purely from a coaching standpoint.
I think Scott Brooks is fired, though, right?
I mean,
Maybe. Not so sure, maybe
there
not
have been
sure.
so many questions I've had about not only the coach, but also the front office there. I can't.
That's fine. Grunfeld's a bad GM.
Yep. So Memphis would be interesting. I think defensively, like you said, he would be able to step in day one, be okay, probably. And you get to work with
Marcus Gasol, Jaren Jackson.
Marcus Gasol's not there.
Mike Conley.
Mike
My bad.
Conley. I was trying to think of their coach, and it's killing me.
JB.
Yeah. Who I think he's got potential as a head coach, but I don't know. I'm still floating in that area. I'm like, I think I'm leaning closer to like maybe that 7 through 10, 7 through 12 range. How about you, Ricky? For
8
Sekou?
through 11.
Sekou.
Pelicans, Heat, Hawks, Magic. That all.
What makes them
those,
good for those teams? I mean,
for
outside
those
the
ones,
Hawks.
like the Pelicans, they're entering the post Anthony Davis, so there's going to be time for. He's not going to be rushed into anything, so he's going to have time to develop. And they're another team where I don't think Alvin Gentry is going to be like canned like Dell Demps was. I think there's more respect for
I don't think there's a reason to fire him
Gentry
now.
in that organization than there was for Dell Demps. Miami Heat, like we said, like they're rock solid with Spoelstra's not going to get fired. They're going to be a team that's not going to be competing and he can develop with. The Hawks could just be a team where it's like, yeah, we can go and compete, but also we've kind of stacked up a little bit.
I'm actually liking the
to where
Hawks.
you can just freaking just sit there and develop. And then with Orlando, I know Orlando's going to get mad because they're going to be like, Ricky's not a 2-guard. But, I mean, if they really like him, they could sit there and go, hey, develop on this team with all of our starters that we have. And, like, Clifford's not going to get fired from Orlando.
But Clifford is a guy who does not play his players, like his rookies specifically. Like he's not giving a ton of minutes to Mo Bamba. He wasn't giving minutes to
bad and hurt.
he wasn't giving
that might not be a
minutes
bad
to
thing
Malik
for
Monk at all.
Sekou. Like, it might not end up being a bad
He
thing.
needs time. I think the best place for him would be the Hawks.
The Hawks would be intriguing.
You look at them: Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, Taurean Prince, and then at the 4, you move Collins to the 5. We keep talking about what?
You can't move Collins to the 5.
Why
He's
not?
so bad defensively.
But my thing is that Sekou would probably most likely, and
Sekou can't guard 5.
I think he can. I think he has the potential to 1 through 5, just because of his size. If we're saying he's still growing,
I don't see it.
To be fair, the last time he was measured, I think, was when he was still 17, or when he was still just turning 17.
6'9", 210 is what we're saying,
Yeah.
and we're also saying that he's going to add weight and add size
Essentially.
coming on to an NBA team.
His
I think
agent,
that
in the recent article that I saw said 6'9", 6'10"
okay.
will probably be what he's measured at.
all right. So
Yeah.
if we're saying 6'10", I think he can guard 5s.
Maybe.
I think he's quick enough. I think he's strong enough. Because even though he's not, 210 is kind of small.
Yeah.
For a 5, I still think that he can add weight, and also I think he's just naturally strong. I think he has that kind of athleticism. I really like him. I think that's what I'll say. I think the Hawks would be an intriguing spot for him.
Yeah.
Unless the Hawks just do what Dave did and gives them Zion at number 1. Because you hit some lottery.
I did. I hit some lottery. Zion got one.
Yeah, that would be obviously different.
So, no, I mean,
Change up the strategy.
it
but-
does depend on how that rolls out, which is honestly a ton of the fun of this year's draft is the new odds. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think that
I'd laugh if they stay chalk.
I was on the fence on this coming in, and I think it's going to come down to a team need. I think that, like you said,
Something you don't hear from Dave too often.
well, no,
in
I think
draft
like
talk.
you said is, no teams in the top 10 necessarily need a guy who can perform day one, but I do know what Rui Hachimura can do, and I think that he's not done growing as far as where he's at. I like the bringing up the playing the three is interesting to me. Sekou, he could be great, he could be terrible. You know, it's just higher floor, lower ceiling.
Yeah.
So if you're in that 10 through 12 range, 10 through 15 range, Rui might have a better career.
I just have a feeling for Sekou, you do not want to miss out. I'd rather miss than miss out, you know?
Okay.
Now, when I say this, I'm not comparing player to player, apples to apples. I'm saying situation.
Right. People are still going to take it this
I
way.
could see Rui Hachimura, if he lands in the right situation, being much like a Klay Thompson, where it was like, Klay,
What the fuck?
just hear me out before you say what the fuck and everything.
Okay,
so
I'm just saying
he was a guy
the
who
players that you have compared Rui Hachimura to are Klay Thompson and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
3-year guy in college. So yet again, coming into the league at the same age, he was drafted at 11, so wasn't a top pick guy, wasn't towards the end of the lottery, but he was a guy. Yes, they had a plan and he could go behind Steph, but also, let's say Rui goes to let's say Atlanta. He could be a guy that, hey, I'm going to fit this role. I'm going to do these things that I do well, really well for this team. And if he lands in the right situation, could be a Klay Thompson-esque player to a team of, hey, this is what he does, and this is what he does really well, and it helps him
Could be
win.
one of the best role players in the NBA.
It could be Justin Jackson. I don't know.
Yikes.
I just don't see it for him. I mean, we if we're doing the drafts that we have covered and juniors that have gone in the top 10, or juniors or seniors, right? Chris Dunn was the first one. Buddy Hield was the second. And then Don Maker ended up coming out of high school. It said junior, so I was thrown off.
Just right
Chris
there,
Dunn,
the first
So
two.
50-50.
Chris Dunn and Buddy Hield. The next one, top 10, was none because they didn't take any. The next one that was the first one off, though, was Justin Jackson. Then we go to 2018, and we had coming out, again, top 10 was Mikal Bridges. So Mikal Bridges, Chris Dunn, and
Are any of
Buddy
us
Hield.
low on Mikal Bridges right now?
No.
No. And the thing with the first two that you mentioned, Chris Dunn was in a shit situation with the T-Wolves and then got traded for Jimmy Butler. And then Buddy Hield was arguably in a not right spot in New Orleans. And now that he's switched over to the Kings, has been flourishing.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'm not bashing the Buddy thing.
Big leg play,
but I
shoots
think
like Steph.
I think the thing
Upset.
with Chris Dunn, I mean, again, Buddy Hield was a much better college player than Chris Dunn was.
Wooden Award winner.
And you
put
look
some
at
respect on that name.
who was the kid from last year? I totally blanked.
Mikal.
Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is still trying to he's not a full-time starter on that.
He's on a terrible team.
He's on
that
the
has
Suns
the best
Suns team.
One of the best prospects on their team is a 2-guard, so you know he gets to ride the bench behind
Josh
Jackson at the 3, and then Dev Booker at the 2. So I don't know that he would start over either of those guys.
But that's kind of concerning to me is the fact that Josh Jackson
Really?
Josh, I'm not over Devin Booker. Obviously, Devin Booker's ridiculous, but Josh Jackson really hasn't been great.
But this
at
is
all.
when they have to figure out if Josh Jackson's going to be with them because this is year 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, and Mikal Bridges has shown great flashes. There's
Yeah, I mean he's shooting pretty well still.
couple
and
games.
Defensively, I think that one of their best lineups was having him, Jackson, and DeAnthony Melton out there. And they're actually playing pretty good defense for a bit.
Yeah, I just think that again, you can't miss out on Sekou. That's my big thing with it, and we'll obviously come down to what the draft order comes out and what teams are feeling.
Yeah, I think that's
but
going to matter a lot.
I just think that
Team like the Hawks could get a bargain.
Rui's a little bit limited, but that's my opinion. Final thoughts. You good?
No, I'm good.
Good.
Nope, solid.
Cool.
Still on the fence.
Still on the fence, Rui Hachimura, Sekou Doumbouya. Let us know down in the comments below which side you're on. That's going to wrap it up for the Fast Break Podcast. Next week's going to be a very special episode where Dave ruins his laptop more. We also will have a very special guest on the podcast, so definitely stay tuned for that. If you're listening on iTunes, rate this 5 stars if you have the time to. We would very much appreciate that if you did so. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. I think I already mentioned it, but why not mention it twice? And also follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/mostvaluablepodcast. For Dave Oster, that's Ricky Widmer. I'm Sean Anderson. See you next time.